There's no doubt Obito lost this time. Aside from being a little weaker in Taijutsu, Nagato has almost no weaknesses. He's truly hard to deal with, Kakashi said, shaking his head. Nagato's performance left him with the sense of someone with unfathomable depth. This wasn't about genius or not. It was the kind of strength that belonged to a true power in the ninja world. He merely lacked battle records to prove it. Kakashi thought Haku, the one they met on the Hidden Mist battlefield, might not even be able to take the current Nagato. With Shinra Tensei and Almighty Pull providing both offense and defense and the ability to absorb ninjutsu, Nagato was already formidable. If his taijutsu improved further, he would be almost flawless. Yes, Obito and Charizard both did their best, Rin Nohara agreed. I still feel like Obito ignored what I told him before, she added with a helpless smile. She had warned him not to overexert himself, but Obito had fought with everything he had. Rin could understand it. When a chance to win appears, who calmly accepts defeat? When you heal him later, you can tell him, I'm so disappointed in you. He'll probably take it to heart for a long time, Kakashi said after a moment. Obito never spoke it aloud, but his actions were too obvious. Kakashi felt Obito might as well have written, I'm interested in Rin Nohara, across his face. Rin waved him off. How could I? He got second place. Saying that would hurt him too much. She planned to comfort him later, not scold him, tell him not to be discouraged, to keep striving to surpass Nagato. Kakashi didn't push it, he'd only been teasing. Besides, if Rin had actually said it, Obito would brood for at least half a month. Kakashi could already picture him with vacant eyes muttering, I was so foolish. Since I was going to be second anyway, I should have... Kakashi looked up at Kakuzu on the high platform and considered the future. With Nagato's strength, could he be the leader of the future evil Akatsuki organization? He wondered. Intelligence from Yamato's future team had marked Kakuzu as a future member of that organization. Kakuzu and Hidan were even supposed to kill Asuma. Kakashi thought a group made up entirely of S-rank rogue ninjas would need an undeniably powerful leader to hold them together. S-rank rogues wouldn't be easily controlled without someone who could suppress them. Nagato, young as he was, already had the makings of a ninja world powerhouse. If he kept honing his skills, he'd be on the path toward the very top. In 20 years, it wouldn't be surprising if he could intimidate S-rank rogues. Kakashi listed names in his head, Deidara, Sasori, Uchiha Itachi, Kasame Hoshigaki, Kakuzu, Hidan, and felt uneasy. The Shinobi sect counted both current Akatsuki members like Nagato and future evil Akatsuki members like Kakuzu among its ranks. Could the Shinobi sect degenerate into the evil Akatsuki organization? He forced the thought away. He'd already met several future members in different circumstances. Kasame while still in the Hidden Mist, and a young Uchiha Itachi before he began training, but nothing obvious showed in them yet. Growth that fast is what you'd expect from someone with the sage's eyes, Hanzo muttered, secretly astonished. During the encirclement of the Shinobi sect, Nagato had shown a sudden burst of power. Compared to that, the version of Nagato they'd just watched was unmistakably a true powerhouse. Abilities that absorbed ninjutsu and repelled attacks weren't invincible, but they were extremely useful in battle. The match is over. I won't stay any longer. There are pressing matters in the Rain Village that need my attention, Hanzo said, straightening his expression. The match had finally ended. He didn't want to spend another second lingering. Sosuke weighed on him mentally, and Kakuzu pressed him practically. He'd had enough. Though he'd done nothing all day, Hanzo felt like he'd been put through ascetic training. Important matters come first, Mu Yue said, seeing Hanzo about to lose his composure, and didn't force him to stay. After all, Hanzo had brought the tournament prestige and popcorn to the Shinobi sect. They couldn't be too demanding. At the farewell moment, Kakuzu let go of his aggressive posture and waved Hanzo off. Come visit often. The Shinobi sect and Rain Village are one family. Hanzo's mouth twitched. If he hadn't been unable to defeat Mu Yue, if Mu Yue didn't have leverage over him, he wouldn't have come at all. He pretended not to hear, and quickly retreated to the Rain Village with his guards and trusted retainers. The ordinary Rain Ninja would find their way back on their own. This martial arts tournament was far more interesting than the chuunin exams, the Fire Country daimyo said, fanning himself contentedly after the match. Konoha's grand chuunin exams would also invite the daimyo, but this youth martial arts tournament had more excitement. Many contestants in the elimination rounds could have dominated the chuunin exams. Even those eliminated early here would have done well back in the chuunin tests. The daimyo thought Konoha might take his suggestion to hold similar events someday, though he could not force them. The relationship between a daimyo and a village was cooperative, not superior-subordinate. The shinobi sect cannot be underestimated, the Rain Country daimyo agreed, smiling broadly. He'd been annoyed when the shinobi sect requested land, but the sect's performance had given him face in front of the fire daimyo. Losing some untaxed land was a small price. Wealthy merchants and nobles who had watched the tournament thought the shinobi sect's display meant they could be reliable for missions. Sosuke had been famous before, but a single strong leader wasn't enough. An entire force needed to be dependable. Besides Nagato, Yahiko and Konan had entered the elimination rounds. Konan had even made the second round. That already surpassed many smaller villages' results. Kitsuchi, however, was more wary of Konoha than impressed by Nagato. No matter how talented Nagato was, the shinobi sect numbered fewer than 200 people, no real threat to a place like Iwagakure. Konoha, on the other hand, was one of the 5 great shinobi villages. Iwagakure had sent many young shinobi to the tournament. In terms of numbers in the elimination rounds, Iwagakure was not less than Konoha. Yet after the first round, more than half of Iwagakure's participants were gone. After the second, they were all eliminated. Konoha had 5 ninjas in the final 4, an absurd dominance. Kitsuchi felt he ought to report the tournament intelligence to his own father. The younger generation had clearly swung in Konoha's favor. Obito, injured, was treated by Mu Yue and then sent to the shinobi sect's hospital, where he shared a room with Metkai. "Guy, I'm sorry. I still lost to Nagato and couldn't avenge you," Obito sighed, embarrassed. Nagato had been too strong. Obito had the will, but lacked the power. "Did you give it your all?" Metkai asked, smiling brightly and offering a thumbs up. "Of course. I almost won," Obito said. Metkai's smile widened. "That's enough. If you fought with everything you had, then even in defeat, you'll have no regrets later," Guy said. "Youth comes with failure. We must absorb the lessons and grow." Obito nodded without thinking. Metkai's words resonated. "By the way, Guy, where did you learn that? It doesn't fit your usual academic scores," Obito teased, rubbing his chin. Guy had never been much for theory. Perhaps because those who truly work hard improve quickly, Kakashi's voice cut in from the doorway as he and his team entered. "Perhaps, without you knowing, Guy's qualities have already surpassed yours by a lot." Kakashi's tone was light, but his point landed. "Kakashi, you stay in the final 4. Don't act like..." Obito pouted teasingly. Kakashi said nothing. He was in the final 4 after all. He made a mental note to get his own back on Obito later. "Obito, your fight was incredible. You forced Nagato to reveal hidden abilities and even outpaced him in Taijutsu," Rin praised. Obito's face instantly lit up. After being consoled by Metkai and now praised by Rin, the sting of defeat vanished. "You can start thinking about the ninjutsu you want. The shinobi sect will send someone to discuss it soon," Shisui added. Second place in the Youth Martial Arts Tournament earned a custom-made ninjutsu developed with help from Ninja Master Sosuke of the Shinobi sect. The sect had already contacted Shisui before Kakashi, and he had come to see Obito. Because of the tournament's format, there were no clear 3rd and 4th places, only the champion, the runner-up, and the 2 who made the final 4. The Shinobi sect's solution was to score the 2 semi-final losers to determine 3rd and 4th. If the contestants refused the scoring, a ranking match would be arranged. According to the sect's scoring, Metkai placed 3rd and Shisui 4th. Shisui, having trained with Guy before, had no objection. "A custom ninjutsu, huh?" Obito thought aloud. "What if I asked for the strongest fire release in the world?" he added on a sudden impulse. Fire Dragon Dance was currently the strongest fire release in the ninja world. Obito figured that getting something stronger than that would be a better reward than first place. Kakashi looked at him speechlessly. This was Ninja Master Sosuke, a top-tier powerhouse, obviously not someone to make vague, overreaching demands of. Rin was blunt. "That's not a great idea. Custom should mean specifics. Nature transformation, effects, whether it burns or explodes. Asking for the strongest is too vague. Oh, Obito scratched his head. What he really wanted was a ninjutsu as powerful as one thought cut. Nothing else mattered. Back at the Shinobi sect, the clan celebrated Nagato's great victory. "Nagato, I knew you could do it," Yahiko laughed, slapping Nagato's shoulder. Yahiko had truly believed Nagato could win. In his eyes, among ninjas under 18, there was no one stronger. He'd even worried when Nagato fought Metkai. He hadn't expected to see a ninja who could overwhelm others without using ninjutsu. "You worked hard," Konan said, handing Nagato a paper crane she'd folded. To Konan, Nagato had fought to protect the Shinobi sect's future as much as to win for himself. Juju pumped a fist. "That was awesome. You knocked down ninjas from the 5 great nations." For a group like the Shinobi sect, devoted to peace in the ninja world, surpassing the major villages even with a single genius felt like a cause for celebration. "Thank you, everyone," Nagato said, accepting the crane and smiling. The Shinobi sect held his dream, and there were many people there he cared for. He was happy to contribute to its growth. After the celebrations, Nagato didn't allow himself to grow complacent. He kept to his training schedule and entered the training room Mu Yue had sealed with a sealing technique to practice yang release breathing. For him, aside from the Rinnegan, yang release breathing was the most important training. Crack. Nagato paused. He'd been training when he heard a sudden cracking sound. His keen senses noticed a change in the Pokemon egg Mu Yue had given him. The plain white shell began to glow with a dazzling light. Nagato focused on it, but couldn't see through the brightness. He stood there, watching the egg enveloped in white light. After all, it was a gift from Mu Yue. He trusted it to be harmless. Chapter 5 and 40. Don't you dare expel me from the 9-beast registry. The white light faded, and the nin-beast egg was gone. All that remained on the little cushion Nagato had set out was the soft cloth itself. That didn't mean Mu Yue had given him a fake egg. Far from it. Nagato felt a presence behind him and turned. A purple mist swirled nearby, and in its center hovered a black sphere with 2 big white eyes and a mouth lined with fangs. The sphere's eyes stared at him with the same curious interest. Nagato instinctively took half a step back. He didn't judge by appearances, but something like a floating black orb wrapped in purple mist and a toothy grin did not look like anything from the world of the living. Anyone would recoil at the sight of a mouth at face level. Taking only half a step back already spoke to how confident he was in his own strength. "Gengar." The creature laughed in a friendly, fizzing sort of way and drifted closer. The sound felt oddly intimate to it. To Nagato, it was still just eerie laughter coming from a strange black ball. "Is this a nin beast?" Nagato asked, thinking hard. The sequence made sense. The egg hatched, and now the creature had appeared in the training room. It had to be the newly hatched nin beast. He'd seen unusual nin beasts before, but none looked quite like this. If he were being rude, he'd say it resembled a legendary anomaly more than a conventional 9-beast. "It is, without a doubt, just unique," Mu Yue said, entering. Mu Yue hadn't expected Nagato's nin beast to be a Gengar. He had been half expecting an Eevee, given Nagato's many affinities. Still, for combat purposes, Gengar suited Nagato well. Nagato's glaring weakness lay in Taijutsu. Gengar's stealth and ability to remain close made it an excellent protector. "Hey!" Gengar took Mu Yue's praise as an invitation to gloat, laughing as it drifted around Nagato in a continuous circle. Since Mu Yue had personally certified it, Nagato wasted no time and formed a contract with the nin beast. "Mu Yue-sensei, can I bring it out, or should it stay in the training room for now?" Nagato asked. The egg had hatched inside the windowless training room. He wanted to take Gengar for a walk. "You can," Mu Yue answered. "It doesn't have to stay here." Gengar's look and abilities were so different that no one would associate it with Obito's crew. Even if it evolved later and showed some similarities, it wouldn't be enough to conflate Sosuke and Hayate Mugetsu. Besides, Mu Yue no longer worried about Uchiha Madara discovering his identity. He'd kept his identity hidden during the apprenticeship to prevent Madara's interference. Now, the apprenticeship had been completed, and their teacher-student relationship was solid. He could afford to be open with Nagato. Even if Madara exposed Mu Yue publicly, little would come of it. Mu Yue's influence in Konoha, his reputation in the reign, and his alliances made it impossible for Madara to simply sway public opinion against him. Nagato nodded, stepped out of the training room, and left with Gengar floating at his back. Mu Yue watched them go, glancing once more at his own egg. It showed no sign of hatching yet. Nagato, Yahiko, who had been about to take a stroll, called with a smile. But his face stiffened when he saw a purple mist rising behind Nagato. Nagato, watch out! Yahiko shouted and darted forward. Nagato couldn't sense anything threatening other than Gengar, and he looked at Yahiko in confusion. Realizing what Yahiko meant, he reassured him. It's fine, Yahiko. You don't need to worry. But there's something like a ghost floating behind you, Yahiko protested. He'd never been a believer, but seeing it with his own eyes was another matter. If you don't believe me, look, Yahiko urged, and Nagato obliged. The purple figure had vanished. Yahiko rubbed it off as a trick of the eye, until he reached back to scratch his head and felt a chill as if plunging his hand into ice water. A black sphere wreathed in purple mist and bearing those huge eyes floated right behind him. A Gengar! Yahiko's eyes widened. He nearly fell. Nagato caught him just in time. Nagato, use Shinra Tensei! Yahiko shouted, forming chakra. Gengar was close enough that an instant cast Shinra Tensei would be effective. It's my nin beast, Nagato said, smiling. Yahiko's near fall showed just how unnerving Gengar could be. Oh, so it's a nin beast. Yahiko looked enlightened, then quickly admitted, I still can't get over it. Whose nin beast looks like this? The purple mist, the black sphere, those enormous eyes. It was not the sort of thing a decent person would expect their companion to resemble. Gengar! The creature reacted by sticking out its long pink tongue at Yahiko. Gengar's lick didn't truly harm Yahiko. It was newborn and its power was low, but it left his vision swimming and made him want to scrub his face clean. It's odd-looking, but it is a nin beast, Nagato repeated. Gengar showed no aggression, and since Mu Yue had certified it, Yahiko had to accept it. Let's go show the others, Yahiko said after a moment. He couldn't be the only one freaked out. The rest should meet Nagato's unusual nin beast sooner rather than later. If someone encountered Gengar alone, a fight could break out. Isn't that a problem? Nagato hesitated. Judging by appearances wasn't kind, but Gengar's look would startle anyone who saw it. Better to introduce them now and avoid accidents later, Yahiko said reasonably. Nagato agreed, and with Gengar excitedly bobbing along, they went to find Juju. The exclamation, "A Gengar!" rang frequently through the Shinobi sect's headquarters. Gengar's bizarre debut left a lasting impression on many. After the martial arts tournament, news spread through the ninja world without Mu Yue needing to promote it. The tournament had already attracted attention. What happened there only amplified interest. What surprised people most was that first place had gone to a ninja from the Shinobi sect. That stunned many. Iwagakure and Konoha both took the youth martial arts tournament seriously, sending talented competitors and strong leaders. Iwagakure had Kitsuchi, son of the third Tsuchikage, and Konoha had Rie-yang Muye. That made it hard to believe the Shinobi sect had simply rigged the results. Even if they favored their own, the competition for first place was fierce and skill-based. Some began dubbing Nagato the ninja world's #1 genius. Initially, the title came from sincere admiration. His talent seemed unmatched. But as the label caught on, it took on a conspiratorial edge. No one among the 5 great nations had anointed a single #1 so casually, and a small country producing such a figure invited suspicion. Konoha's strong showing also raised eyebrows. 5 of the 8 quarter-finalists were from Konoha, and 3 of the 4 semi-finalists. Iwagakure, by contrast, failed to get anyone into the quarterfinals, a humiliation considering their investment. In Iwagakure's Tsuchikage office, Onoki frowned over the tournament reports Kitsuchi had submitted. In terms of young geniuses, Iwagakure falls short compared to Konoha, he said, rubbing his forehead. He knew Iwagakure hadn't produced standout prodigies recently, but the gap surprised him. Iwagaki, once considered a top youth talent, was knocked out by Metkai in a single punch. Konoha didn't just have Guy, they had multiple prodigious talents close behind. Which means Sosuke's side is even more important, Onoki mused. If the Shinobi sect could help nurture more elite ninjas, it could relieve Iwagakure's plight. But Onoki's initial plan to involve the rain in diplomatic maneuvering had been designed to tether Konoha in a way that would create friction with the Shinobi sect. If discovered, that scheme would lead to conflict between Iwagakure and the Shinobi sect. Change the approach. Put the Rain Village front and let them bind the Shinobi sect against Konoha, Onoki considered. The Rain could be the visible instigator while Iwagakure operated from the shadows. The downside? The Shinobi sect might not help the Rain at all. They were not natural allies, merely mutually cautious. For now, Onoki decided to watch and wait. Even though Iwagakure lacked top young talent, it still had tens of thousands of ninja. Given a major war, Iwakure's mass could counter Konoha's quality. There was no need to panic yet. In the Land of Lightning, 4th Raikage A sneered as he read the tournament reports, calling someone the ninja world's top genius just for winning a competition organized by their own sect. How arrogant and naive. If it weren't for our need to train with the tailed beast, I'd like to send someone to teach them a lesson, he said, eyeing Killer B, who trained nearby. Killer B, as the new Eight Tails Jinchuriki, was restricted from leaving the village. A had watched B's steady growth and believed B could even surpass him. If B could one day best his teachers, surely he could be the world's top genius. Rain ninjas, so arrogant. If I weren't training, I'd make them learn some humility, Killer B replied in his usual rapping cadence. Don't rap while training. Talk like a normal person. A snapped, smacking B on the head. B, beaten, still grinned. He wasn't going to give up his rhythm. Iwagaki then entered and told A to come with him to a conference room. There, 4th Raikage I found his father, the 3rd Raikage, and several other Cloud Elite shinobi. All right, begin, the 3rd Raikage said. Which village should the hidden cloud target next? Speak. The Cloud Village was less domineering now than it had been 2 years prior. The Eight Tails situation had humbled them. They were in a standoff with Konoha and skirmishing with Tsunagakure, but Tsunagakure was no longer the easy target it once was. Geographic logistics further complicated attacks against Tsunagakure. The Cloud would have to cross smaller countries, increasing the chance of leaks or ambushes. Iwagakure is a good target. We can land on their east coast by ship or go via the Land of Waterfall to reach the Land of Earth, suggested one Cloud Ninja. Sea transport avoids passing through other nations, reducing exposure. Intelligence showed Iwagakure's strength currently unimpressive. Another suggested Konoha. Though prosperous, Konoha had suffered heavy losses in major wars. If the Cloud didn't strike now, Konoha could recover. Why not hit the hidden mist? Another voice asked. They still resented the mist for killing a Jinchuriki. 4th Raikage mostly listened. These strategic decisions weighed heavily and needed thorough deliberation. The meeting ran 3 hours before the 3rd Raikage adjourned it. In Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi flipped through the tournament reports. I didn't expect the Shinobi sect to have such outstanding young ninjas. Might Guy and Kakashi didn't even get first place, he said, a touch regretful. He had hoped to see that legendary fire dragon dance. Still, our Konoha ninjas did well, he added. They took 2nd through 4th. The larger gain was the influx of missions and the reaffirmation of Konoha's depth. 5 of the top 8 came from their village. Asuma tied with Kakashi in the quarterfinals? I should have a word with him about not getting cocky, Hiruzen mused. But Asuma had traveled to the Rain to compete. Hiruzen decided a lighter hand would do. He'd remind Asuma later, letting him enjoy the moment for now. Danzo Shimura en route, however, was in a foul mood. He'd hoped to create trouble during the tournament, but Mu Yue's preparations had sealed off Root's options. With the Shinobi sect strong and the battlefield controlled, Danzo's usual tricks wouldn't work. Repulsion, attraction, ninjutsu absorption, these must be Rinnegan abilities, Danzo muttered, studying Nagato's intelligence. He became more convinced than ever that the Rinnegan was the explanation for Nagato's sudden rise. If he could possess the Rinnegan, combined with his own power, even Hiruzen would be within reach. But for now, he could only simmer with desire. Chapter 541, A Big Coin Drop, S+ Draw Scroll. When the Youth Martial Arts Tournament ended, various system notifications arrived at almost the same time. Mu Yue watched as his disciples' life missions updated. Life mission, embark on the path to the strongest Taijutsu. Main goal, become a top-tier ninja world expert in taijutsu, both in strength and fame, so everyone knows one can become strong without excelling in ninjutsu. Mission progress, 43.1%. Compared to the hidden mist battlefield, Metkai had made real progress in both strength and reputation. He could now reliably sustain the simultaneous activation of the fifth gate and rock-breathing chakra mode. His golden skyline was more advanced, and all of his taijutsu had improved. The youth martial arts tournament had also given him a big boost in fame. Even though he'd only reached the semi-finals and not second place, the tournament recognized him as the second strongest overall, just below Nagato. That combination of increased strength and recognition pushed Metkai's life mission back towards settlement. He was only 6.9% away from the next reward, overtaking Obito's progress. Name. Life mission. It's not that those who become Hokage are recognized by everyone, but that those who are recognized by everyone can become Hokage. Main goal, become the Hokage of Konoha Ninja Village. Mission progress, 40%. Obito had also made significant gains. Second place had done his prestige and experience a lot of good, but because his mission's requirements differed, his progress didn't climb as sharply as Guy's. Still, he had just met the threshold for a settlement reward and received one progress reward. Mu Yue read the reward list, and memories from his previous life stirred. Disciple Metkai's strength and prestige have increased during the path to the strongest taijutsu. Progress reward, moderate physical constitution enhancement, self-selectable draw scroll fragment, S+, mastery level, Taijutsu mastery scroll. Disciple Uchiha Obito's strength, prestige, and experience have increased. Probability of becoming Hokage slightly improved. Progress reward, chakra plus 1600, self-selectable draw scroll fragment, S+ mastery level, fire release ninjutsu mass scroll. Seeing the word fragment made Mu Yue involuntarily wince. He'd transmigrated and still had to collect fragments. Still, this time there was good news. Kakashi's life mission had also changed, and it had actually triggered earlier, right after his fight with Sasori. Unlike the last time, Kakashi instantly jumped to 100%. This time his progress stayed in the 50s. Life mission, true power lies in protection. Main goal, protect your comrades, protect everything you care about. Mission progress, 53 trigger times. 50-some% was still more than enough for one settlement reward. Disciple Kakashi Hatake successfully protected his comrades in a desperate situation. Progress reward, moderate sword training experience, self-selectable draw scroll fragment, S mastery level, sword experience scroll. With Kakashi's fragment added to the two from Guy and Obito, Mu Yue now had exactly 3 fragments. He synthesized them. Synthesis successful. Item obtained. Self-selectable draw scroll, S+, mastery level. Mu Yue didn't immediately use the draw scroll. He turned to the martial arts tournament rewards. Making money had never been his only goal in holding the tournament. He'd also wanted to push his disciples' life missions and test whether a self-organized major competition could generate system rewards. In the past, he'd tried farming rewards with many small exams, but the system proved stingy. Only the final exam in special training had ever settled. That showed Mu Yue something important. So long as an event met the system's criteria, regardless of who initiated it, rewards would appear. Disciple Nagato diligently cultivated and won first place in the Youth Martial Arts Tournament. Reward, Chakra plus 2000, Ninjutsu Draw S, Kroll S, Mastery Level, Combination Ninjutsu Mastery Level. Disciple Uchiha Obito diligently cultivated and took an excellent result. Reward, Chakras 100, Ninjutsu Draw Scroll, Fire Release, Hozuki Lantern. Disciple Metkai diligently cultivated and took an excellent result. Reward, Chakra plus 1500, Taijutsu Draw Scroll. A. Proficient level, Pain Sky Foot. Disciple Uchiha Shisui diligently cultivated and took an excellent result. Reward, Chakra 1500, Ninjutsu Draw Scroll. A. Disciple Kashi Hatake diligently cultivated and took a good result. Reward, Chakra 1200, Ninja's Draw Scroll. B. The basic chakra rewards alone totaled a staggering 8,000. Nagato's first place prize didn't just hand over an S-rank draw, he dropped a mastery level combination ninjutsu. Combination ninjutsu looked simple at first glance, but it had a huge ceiling. Mu Yue's own combination ninjutsu was already at mastery, so Nagato's drop converted into 3,000 proficiency points for Mu Yue. The instant influx triggered a rush of cultivation memories and substantially advanced his combination ninjutsu mastery. Mu Yue resisted the urge to test everything immediately and instead examined each disciple's skill drops more carefully. Metkai and Obito's skills were useful, but not immediately for Mu Yue. He already had many similar techniques. A thought formed. Maybe the system pre-activates enhancement rewards based on anticipated future improvements. That would explain why, as his disciples' standards rose, the enhancement rewards became more substantial and why repeated exams gave no rewards. The disciples simply didn't have time to grow between tests. The idea made sense, but Mu Yue lacked enough information to be certain. Regardless, the tournament had been a complete success. It solved the Shinobi sect's financial problems, raised the sect's prestige, and advanced his disciples' life missions. With several draw scrolls in hand, Mu Yue performed a small ritual to calm himself, washing, burning incense, mentally reciting a few deity names, then began drawing from lowest to highest, starting with the B rank scroll. Ninjutsu draw scroll B, proficient level, used, acquired ninjutsu, flying leaf quick blade. As he organized the incoming memories, Mu Yue noticed that grass-type skills from the Pokemon world had been localized as wood release ninjutsu by the system. Perhaps because he possessed wood release, the system had translated those skills accordingly. He recalled previous instances when the system ensured he could use what it rewarded. If he hadn't yet mastered a required nature transformation, the system granted it. That made him suspect the rules for bloodline-limited skills were strict. The system wouldn't give him entirely new bloodlines lightly. He moved on to both A-rank proficient draws at once. Ninjutsu Draw Scroll, A, proficient level, used, acquired ninjutsu, earth release, earth flow spears. Ninjutsu Draw Scroll, A, perf level, used, acquired ninjutsu, water release. Hard whirlpool water blade. These were all native Naruto-style ninjutsu and decent techniques. A rank, proficient wasn't a trivial reward. He kept going. Ninja Draw Scroll, used, Flame Vortex. The draw flooded his mind with cultivation memories for Flame Vortex. The jump from proficient to mastery was steep, 500 proficiency points to reach proficient from beginner, but 3,000 to reach mastery from proficient, so these mastery memories were meaningful. Mu Yue judged Flame Vortex to be a solid fire release, quite different from a mere game skill. Having exhausted the A and below, he turned to the S-rank scroll. There's only one rank between A and S, but the gap felt large when it mattered. Ninjutsu Draw Scroll, S mastery rank used, acquired, Ninjutsu Rainer mastery rank, a cascade of rain prayer. Cultivation memories filled his mind. It wasn't an extraordinary technique, but it was good. Similar to Great Sunny Day, except rain prayer created rain to amplify water release power, while Great Sunny Day amplified fire release. Water release was Mu Yue's second most proficient nature transformation. His water release proficiency was already over 10,000 at mastery rank, about 4,000 points short of perfect rank. Rain prayer would be useful. He could teach it to Melodic to boost Melodic's strength and to Rin Nohara, although Rin currently didn't meet the stat prerequisites to learn and use it. The system localized techniques without imposing extra restrictions on nine beasts or humans, but Rin's stats were simply too low right now. Mu Yue also planned to teach Charizard Great Sunny Day. Although Obito could use Great Sunny Day himself, it took time and a lot of chakra to learn and cast. It would often be more efficient to have Charizard use that weather-enhancing technique. Finally, he set his sights on the highest prize, the S+ self-select draw scroll. Mu Yue had used the system for over 3 years, but had only ever obtained 2 S+ scrolls, one from Kakashi's 100% life mission reward, and this one. The Kakashi reward had been restricted to lightning release, but this new scroll was genuinely self-selecting. After a moment's thought, Mu Yue selected fire release. Convert self-selectable draw scroll, S+, mastery rank into fire release skill draw scroll S+, mastery rank, he confirmed, and then drew. Fire release skill draw scroll S+, mastery rank, consumed, acquired ninjutsu Blue Flame. A flurry of memories related to Blue Flame poured into his head. In the Pokemon world, Blue Flame was associated with the legendary Reshiram. In the games, it wasn't inherently game-breaking, just a stronger fire-type move. Reality, though, had no game balance. Blue Flame lived up to its legend. It was monstrously powerful, no less impressive than One Thought Cut. Where One Thought Cut required both lightning release nature and high swordsmanship, Blue Flame relied purely on an extremely high level of fire release chakra nature transformation and specialized fire practice. It wasn't simpler, either. Blue Flame demanded greater mastery of the elemental transformation than One Thought Cut did. Mu Yue estimated that only after entering flame-breathing chakra mode would Shisui and Obito barely meet the requirements to use it, even then, only after considerable progress. Absorbing so many cultivation memories at once, Blue Flame, Rain Prayer, Flame Vortex, and the rest left Mu Yue a little fatigued. He knew the system was the cause. An ordinary mind would likely have broken under that information influx. He had intended to find a secluded place to test his new techniques, but Obito had arrived at the Shinobi sect to commission custom ninjutsu, so Mu Yue delayed testing and went to meet him while wearing his alias. The Shinobi sect reception hall was already busy. Obito, Kakashi, and Shisui waited for the famed ninja master. Nagato and Yahiko served as the sect's greeters. "No wonder you were confident about finishing in the top 2, Obito," Yahiko said. "On top of your own strength, you contracted a powerful flying nin beast." Obito smiled, pleased. He had been sure he could place near the top, and now he had actual proof. "Of course, I expected to be in the top 2 from the start." Yahiko shrugged. "You were just unlucky running into that stone crab in the first round. With your strength, you could have made the 8th finals." Obito returned the compliment with a grin. Yahiko deserved it. Yahiko's elimination round performance had indeed been solid, if not spectacular. Kakashi listened, then glanced at Nagato and Conan before asking, "By the way, what's the current state of your Akatsuki? I haven't heard much recently." Kakashi had come along partly to learn why Obito had come to the ninja master asking about custom ninjutsu, and partly because future intelligence from Yamato had warned him the Akatsuki would become a dire force. If something could be done now to prevent that, it would be worth knowing. Yahiko smiled lightly. "There's no Akatsuki organization now, only a Shinobi sect squad, codenamed Akatsuki." He sounded almost amused, with no regret in his voice. To Yahiko, the Shinobi sect was the fulfillment of what the Akatsuki had once dreamed of. There was no reason to mourn the old group. "And by the way, I'm the captain," he added with a laugh. Obito's expression betrayed a flash of envy. He'd never been a captain or even vice-captain. Kakashi simply had more experience and had naturally taken leadership in many situations. Obito muttered under his breath, "Damn, white-haired bastard," thinking of Kakashi's habit of ordering everyone around when he'd been captain. Kakashi kept a neutral exterior, but felt a surge of inward concern. If the Shinobi sect could emerge from a reorganized Akatsuki, could that path still lead to the evil Akatsuki of his future? He wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but the intelligence he'd seen suggested the later Akatsuki would be powerful and dangerous, and Nagato, an Akatsuki founder, already had terrifying potential. The current picture, Akatsuki members absorbed into the Shinobi sect, including people like Kakuzu, made Kakashi uneasy. Just then Mu Yue, disguised as his alias, strode into the reception hall and drew every eye. 544, Method for World Peace? Ninja Master Sosuke. Yahiko, Nagato, and Conan rose at once and greeted Mu Yue. He smiled and nodded in return. Lord Sosuke. Kakashi and Shisui followed with polite salutations. Obito was a beat slower, but he didn't do anything rash. He privately ranked Ninja Master Sosuke below Mu Yue, but compared to Mu Yue, Sosuke was still someone you didn't provoke. Mu Yue glanced at Obito. Any questions about the custom ninjutsu? He had already decided what custom ninjutsu to give Obito. If conditions allowed, he would provide Flame Vortex. It was an excellent fire release, well suited as a personally customized technique by Ninja Master Sosuke. If Flame Vortex didn't exactly match Obito's request, Mu Yue could either develop one himself or copy a suitable technique from his skill library. He had no intention of giving Obito Blue Flame under his alias. Blue Flame was an S+ level extraction scroll technique that outclassed Mu Yue's own fire dragon dance in every respect. Handing that to a second-place winner would be awkward. If the second-place prize were stronger than the first, future tournaments would see everyone chasing that slot. Plus, Obito and Sasuke weren't familiar with each other. Giving such a powerful ninjutsu to Obito for no reason would look suspicious. Obito scratched his head. What can I ask for, specifically? He really was here to ask about ninjutsu. He lacked strong techniques and wanted something super ultimate like Golden Skyline or Thoughtless Blade. He'd originally thought to ask for the most powerful in the ninja world, but Kakashi had convinced him that sounded like asking for trouble, so he toned it down to as powerful as possible. Only power? Any other conditions? Mu Yue prompted. Ninjutsu is ultimately a combination of nature transformations. A custom technique's specifications normally cover power and what sort of nature or form it should take. Just powerful. And make the range large, Obito said after thinking a moment. Fire release lacked lightning speed. If the range was wide, he wouldn't worry so much about missing. Mu Yue smiled faintly. Understood. I'll send someone to deliver the developed ninjutsu to the address you provide in half a month. Flame Vortex already fit Obito's demands for power and range, but producing a new ninjutsu in a few days would be startling, so Mu Yue set a reasonable half-month delivery. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Half a month for something so simple? He'd heard of Sasuke's deep skills. Would a ninjutsu developed in half a month really be reliable? If it were anyone else, Kakashi might suspect a con. But Sasuke's reputation in the ninja world was solid, and offering his signature jutsu as the first prize for the tournament showed how much he valued it. It didn't make sense for him to cheapen the second prize. Kakashi decided to believe first and question later. After confirming Obito's request, Mu Yue left the reception hall. Since you're already here, want a tour? Yahiko offered. Kakashi had no reason to refuse. This was an opportunity to learn about the Shinobi sect, so he nodded. Yahiko led them around, which mostly meant him lecturing on the sect's deeds. The Shinobi sect's headquarters was newly built and mostly practical. There wasn't much for sightseeing. When Sasuke first brought us here, this place was a wasteland. You had to walk miles to find a village. Now it's alive, Yahiko said, looking over Six Paths City with feeling. Though it was still just a town, Yahiko believed that under Mu Yue's leadership and the sect's efforts, it could become a peaceful ninja city. Kakashi agreed. The youth martial arts tournament was a major event. Representatives from the 5 great shinobi villages came, and even the Fire Country daimyo attended. It would draw a crowd. As they walked, they passed a group of Iwagakure shinobi training. Yahiko greeted them with a smile and subtly quickened the pace. Iwagakure and Konoha were rivals. Yahiko couldn't very well take Kakashi and the others to watch their training. I thought all training grounds were outside the city. I didn't expect rentable ones inside, Kakashi observed. Shisui cast a look at him. This was so close to the sect's core area, it couldn't be a public rental ground. It had to be an internal training field. He kept his gaze on Yahiko. Kakashi would notice such a simple thing, so perhaps he was testing the Shinobi sect Iwagakure relationship. This isn't the public grounds, Yahiko chuckled. It's our internal training field. Normally it's closed. So why are Iwagakure shinobi here? Kakashi asked. Yahiko explained, we took Iwagakure's training commission. They asked us to help train some of their ninja. Training is a private matter, so it surprised Kakashi that Iwagakure would entrust the sect with it, even if only a small portion. Either the shinobi sect had an unusual relationship with Iwagakure, or Iwagakure truly trusted the sect. If Konoha had a need, we'd accept their commissions too, if the pay was right, Yahiko added jokingly. The shinobi sect was neutral. They accepted work from whoever could pay. He didn't expect Konoha to take him up on it, especially with Mu Yue and Konoha, but he meant it as an offhand remark. The more Kakashi learned about the shinobi sect, the more puzzled he became. They had an Sasuke-level master, a prodigy like Nagato, and enough reputation that even Iwagakure entrusted them with training. Yet Yamato's accounts and the major events Kakashi knew of contained no trace of the shinobi sect. It didn't add up. Obito, remember when you said you wanted to be Hokage and end the shinobi world war? Yahiko asked suddenly. Of course, that's my dream, Obito said, chest puffed out. Yahiko and Nagato smiled. Yahiko because Obito's resolve hadn't wavered, Nagato because they were fellow disciples with shared ideals. The Shinobi sect's goal isn't merely to bring order to the Rain Country, Yahiko said solemnly. We pursue world peace. World peace was a lofty, almost naive-sounding ideal. Yahiko didn't possess Mu Yue's appraisal technique and couldn't gauge potential the way Mu Yue did, but from what he'd seen of Obito and the others, they had influence. So he told Kakashi and the group the sect's story and ambitions. Keep it up, Obito said seriously. If I become Hokage, I'll stand with the Shinobi sect to keep the peace. Despite Kakashi's reservations, the Shinobi sect's later connection with the Akatsuki hinted at complications. He couldn't deny the current sect's actions were for the greater good. Obito was training himself toward his ideal, and the Shinobi sect was working to realize theirs. Hearing how Sosuke had started the sect from nothing, recruiting like-minded partners, converting strong bounty nin into allies, turning betrayal into opportunity, and eventually reconciling with a former enemy, Obito was filled with admiration. The tale sounded like a novel. Rescuing a princess, building from scratch, converting foes, it was the stuff of legends. Good luck becoming Hokage, Yahiko said with a sincere smile. I'll do my best, Obito replied with a sheepish grin. Kakashi watched them quietly. Obito's path, while difficult, wasn't impossible. He was talented and had two strong teachers. With effort, Obito could meet the requirements for Hokage. But ending war across the entire ninja world, Kakashi thought that was out of reach. Wars came and went. After great wars there were lulls. But total, permanent peace, especially peace enforced without someone wielding absolute power, seemed impossible. He thought of the first Hokage's era, the most peaceful period since the founding of the villages. That peace existed because Hashirama Senju and early Konoha had near absolute authority. The Shinobi sect didn't have that kind of dominance. To create long-lasting world peace, you'd need something like the Six-Path Sage, an authority no one could equal. Eternal peace, Kakashi mused wryly, would require an immortal Six-Path Sage. Since neither revival nor immortality of such a figure was plausible, he considered the Shinobi sect's ultimate ideal unrealistic. Maybe that naivete is what later caused splits inside the sect and the rise of darker factions like the Akatsuki, Kakashi thought, connecting what little he knew. After leaving the meeting hall, Mu Yue slipped away from Six-Path City and found a secluded spot to test some newly learned techniques. He used perception and ninjutsu to sense, opened his Byakugan to scrutinize the surroundings, and activated Transparent World to scan everything thoroughly. Satisfied, he began. Flying Leaf Quick Blade, he formed hand seals, gathered chakra, shaped it into wood release, and dozens of green leaves sprouted across his palm. Whoosh! Like a storm of blades, they shot toward the nearby trees and punched through trunks, felling them. Mu Yue observed the chakra consumption and nodded. The Flying Leaf Quick Blade was suitable for someone like Yamato, low chakra cost and surprisingly lethal for a wood release attack, better than the wood techniques Yamato had learned en route. He aimed at a stone target next. By burning a bit more chakra, the leaves' power increased enough to pierce rock. Satisfied with that test, Mu Yue skipped over Hard Vortex Water Blade and Earth Rising Spear for the moment and condensed Fire Release Chakra to examine Flame Vortex more closely. He hadn't acquired Hard Vortex Water Blade from the system, but he'd learned its training method from Hiruzen Sarutobi and mastered it through practice. No need to retest something he'd personally trained. Earth Rising Spear had already been drawn from class rewards and tested earlier. Mu Yue mentally prepared for Flame Vortex, ready to evaluate its capabilities in detail. 545. Trust Level Increase, Flame Vortex. Mu Yue completed the condensation of his chakra and expelled a volume of flames that immediately split into two streams, forming a fiery ring around several large trees. He continued to pour chakra into the jutsu, keeping the flames under tight control. Inside the ring, the fire splashed and roared. The trapped trees were quickly reduced to ashes. Good flexibility, Mu Yue nodded. As a fire release technique, Flame Vortex was more versatile than most. As long as he sustained chakra output, he could vary its form in many ways. He could use it to attack targets inside the ring, or increase its capacity to trap and burn. Mu Yue condensed more fire release chakra, pushed out another pair of streams, and formed a new fiery circle. This time, he extended it upward like a spiral staircase, the flames rising vertically. He also tried sweeping the area with broad sheets of flame, still effective. Pray for rain. After a simple test of flame vortex, Mu Yue condensed chakra and used Pray for Rain. It was the counterpart to the Great Sunny Day he'd used earlier. Pray for Rain strengthened all water release in its area and weakened fire release. As his chakra flowed out, dark clouds gathered overhead and a steady downpour began. Strange. The range of Pray for Rain is actually much larger than Great Sunny Day, Mu Yue said, eyeing the area covered by the rain. He had expected the two weather skills to be similar in scope, since they were the same type of ability from the same world, differing only in elemental effect. But the results disagreed. To create a 200-meter Great Sunny Day had cost him 40,000 chakra points, whereas he had just used only 20,000, and Pray for Rain already covered over 300 meters. He considered two possibilities. First, perhaps the Land of Rain's perpetual wet climate amplified Pray for Rain. Second, maybe Pray for Rain traded off a weaker amplification for larger range. Mu Yue decided to test the second option, comparing the power of the same water release used with identical chakra expenditure, once inside the Pray for Rain area and once outside, rather than traveling out of the Land of Rain to test the first. He placed a flying thunder god kunai just outside the Pray for Rain area. First, he used his developed water release, Torrent, inside the Pray for Rain zone. Then he teleported with Flying Thunder God technique and used the same torrent outside it. The amplification on water release is not any weaker than the fire release amplification. Mu Yue concluded after comparing the destruction. The discrepancy in range between Pray for Rain and Great Sunny Day intrigued him, so he tested how Pray for Rain weakened fire release. There he found a notable difference. Inside Great Sunny Day, condensing water release required huge chakra expenditure, or else the water jutsu lost power. Under Pray for Rain, there was no penalty until the fire appeared, but after a fire release was used, the larger that fire's area, the more Pray for Rain interfered with it. Smaller, localized flames suffered less. Clearly, through localization and concretization, Pray for Rain and Great Sunny Day had been tuned differently. I wonder how Pray for Rain compares to ordinary rain, Mu Yue mused. In the ninja world, there were several ways to create rain. Sasuke, for example, would fire fire release into the sky to heat the air quickly and form cumulonimbus clouds for Kirin. Devapath's rain tiger at will used chakra to create precipitation, and each raindrop was linked to the path's perception, giving it defensive utility comparable to Konoha's Grand Barrier. Mu Yue hadn't mastered Rain Tiger at will, so he couldn't compare that, but it was easy for him to create ordinary rain. Fire Release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. He launched a fire dragon skyward to force artificial rainfall. It took longer than Pray for Rain to form, but its coverage was wider. Again, he used Torrent in and out of the rainfall, and compared those results with Torrent under Pray for Rain. As I thought, Pray for Rain's effect is stronger, Mu Yue concluded. Natural rain does help water release users, but the rain produced by Pray for Rain was far superior to normal rainfall in boosting water release. Hardly surprising, given that the jutsu consumed a large amount of chakra and lasted only a few minutes. If it were merely equivalent to natural weather, it wouldn't justify an S-rank extraction scroll. His final test of Pray for Rain was weather replacement. In Pokemon, weather moves override previous weather. If localizations worked the same way, his Great Sunny Day, which cost 40,000 chakra and covered 200 meters for 5 minutes, should be cancelled by someone using Pray for Rain mid-effect. Mu Yue split off a shadow clone and had the clone cast a Great Sunny Day costing 30,000 chakra. The dazzling orb banished the clouds and cleared the sky for hundreds of meters. Mu Yue then condensed chakra and cast Pray for Rain. What happened wasn't the instant replacement he'd envisioned. The dark clouds didn't immediately blot out the sun. As Mu Yue poured chakra in, they slowly expanded and swallowed the sunlight. He dispelled the clone and considered the result. Weather could be replaced, but not by simple overriding. It was a contest of jutsu strength, dependent on chakra and proficiency. If he created Great Sunny Day with 100,000 chakra, and someone else used Pray for Rain with only 10,000, that Pray for Rain wouldn't defeat his son. it would be suppressed, its effective range reduced. He called it a field contest. Only the stronger jutsu wins the field bonuses. When his chakra returned to 98%, Mu Yue moved to the last and most important test, the most valuable skill he'd gained this trip: Blue Flame. As a unique skill of a first-class deity, Mu Yue had high expectations. One thought cut had been powerful, but it leaned on his weaker lightning release and on his mediocre swordsmanship. If Blue Flame matched or exceeded one thought cut, it could replace many of his techniques as his primary offensive ninjutsu, excluding, of course, suicidal techniques like the 8 gates. Chakra coalesced in Mu Yue's palm and underwent nature transformation. A blue flame flared into being above his hand, and the surrounding air went hot instantly. He tossed the blue flame onto a rock. The rock melted into lava in an instant. The blue flame kept burning and spread quickly. He tried to douse it with ordinary water release, but the water evaporated almost immediately and the flame persisted, pushing water breathing, and then condensing a great deal of chakra into high-level water release, finally extinguished it. Compressed flames with enhanced burning properties, almost like Amaterasu, Mu Yue thought. Even with his 10,000 points of water release nature transformation, he needed water breathing to put it out. How many ninja in the world could match that? He suspected the current strongest water release user, Hanzo, couldn't. In that sense, Blue Flame was semi-indestructible. Not truly eternal like Amaterasu, but effectively indestructible in the present ninja world. If no one could extinguish it, it might as well be. Mu Yue changed his release style and fired a pillar of blue flame at some trees. The trees simply turned to ash. Whether compressed into a single high-temperature point or spread as a pillar, blue flame displayed S+ level destructive power. Trees, rocks, iron, none survived. He was satisfied. Blue flame wasn't Amaterasu, but it had room to grow. With greater proficiency and more chakra, it could become even stronger. It also had an advantage Amaterasu lacked: control. If he wasn't worried about chakra waste, he could shape Blue Flame into a great fireball or a great dragon fire technique. Amaterasu required Kagutsuchi to change form. The drawback was that Blue Flame was harder to force directly onto an opponent's body. Amaterasu could ignite a target directly. Blue Flame, in release, behaved more like ordinary fire. Can Rasengan combine with Yue Flame? Mu Yue wondered. Rasengan was one of Naruto's signature ninjutsu and had been adapted to contain wind, Sage Chakra, Amaterasu, lava release, magnet release, almost anything. If Naruto could add those, Mu Yue saw no reason Blue Flame couldn't be merged into a Rasengan. With his wide knowledge and system skills like enlightenment and problem-solving, he could research a Blue Flame Rasengan. That would shift his combat style toward Minato's. Use Flying Thunder God to exploit openings, then strike with a blue flame-infused Rasengan. He made a mental note to research it, and then returned to the Shinobi sect after his chakra fully recovered. Blue Flame was powerful, but its chakra cost rivaled one thought cut. He estimated his disciples couldn't sustain it until at least 15 years old. Even then, it would be uncertain. Obito and Shisui had more chakra due to their bloodlines, and flame-breathing chakra mode augmented them, but flame-breathing was itself energy-hungry. Against multiple high-cost techniques, their endurance wouldn't surpass Kakashi's by much. Of course, they could choose to prioritize stamina over high-consumption techniques. Mu Yue's reason for teaching Kakashi, Obito, and the others such costly skills now had two aims: to familiarize them early, and to give them trump cards for situations where they faced much stronger foes. Even someone like Kitsuchi, if blindsided by Kakashi's thoughtless blade, could die. Plain chakra-based defense alone wouldn't stop such an attack. That evening, the Shinobi sect held a banquet to celebrate the successful martial arts tournament. Most of the shinobi who had come for the tournament had already left Six-Path City, so only a modest guard detail remained. Most of the sect attended the feast. It was a simple, warm affair: food, drink, and conversation, no pompous speeches. It's truly wonderful, Yahiko sighed, looking at the cheerful scene. He hoped the land of rain and the whole world could enjoy this harmony. Sosuke-sensei, you've worked hard, Konan said, offering Mu Yue an origami. She had folded a little chibi version of his vest. Konan didn't have Yahiko's charisma or Nagato's exceptional talent, so she often expressed respect and gratitude through through paper creations. "Thank you," Mu Yue said with a smile as he accepted it. His gaze roamed over the gathered shinobi and rested on Nagato. "But I'm not the only one who worked hard. We all did. The shinobi sect's current state is the result of everyone's effort. Disciple Nagato's trust level has increased. Current trust level 4. Mu Yue was a little surprised when the system's message popped up, but then he figured it made sense. He and Nagato had spent a long time together since Mu Yue transmigrated into the ninja world. They'd shared ordinary teacher and student days, been betrayed and besieged, faced life-and-death moments together, more than most people could imagine. Mu Yue's steady help in times of crisis and his gentle everyday care had gradually deepened Nagato's trust, reaching its peak at this happy gathering. By logic, Mu Yue should have given Nagato a gift right then. The system's welfare rule made that clear. Whenever a disciple reached trust level 4, there was a chance for a large gold payout, and the disciple's return gift would always include a perfect level skill. Every one of Mu Yue's current perfect level abilities had come from those disciple trust rewards. Still, Mu Yue thought it could wait. The timing and atmosphere weren't right. After everyone had just shared their struggles, it would be awkward to suddenly present a reward only to Nagato. "Teacher Sosuke, you're right," Yahiko said, solemn. "But Teacher Sosuke, you're the one who contributed the most." In Yahiko's eyes, leaving the current tournament aside, Sosuke, Mu Yue, had been the founder who steered the shinobi sect through crisis after crisis. His contributions overshadowed everyone else's combined. The shinobi sect could survive without Yahiko or Konan, even without Nagato and Kakuzu, but it could not have existed without Sosuke. Without him, none of this would have happened. Even if Yahiko had pursued his dream of building the Akatsuki, he knew by experience that he could never have brought it to the level the shinobi sect had reached now. "No, if it were only up to my previous abilities, I doubt I could have steadily expanded the Akatsuki," Yahiko admitted, remembering the encirclement that had nearly wiped out the shinobi sect. Even though the Akatsuki had Nagato as a trump card, Nato needed time to grow. Yahiko was painfully aware of his own limitations. Without that growth, he might have dragged them into ruin, like what almost happened before. "This is nonsense," Kakuzu said, taking another sip of sake. "If Sosuke hadn't founded the shinobi sect, how could you all be here talking?" The drink brought memories. Kakuzu had been a ninja of fortune, until betrayal by the hidden waterfall village left him unable to trust anyone. He had once held the village itself as an unshakable belief. When that belief was broken, everything seemed suspect. Then Sosuke appeared and changed things. Kakuzu admitted, perhaps grudgingly, that Sosuke was the second strongest ninja he'd ever faced, Senju Hashirama being the only one above him. Senju was strange in his way, but Sosuke struck Kakuzu as stranger still. Sometimes Sosuke didn't feel like a ninja at all. Maybe only someone who doesn't seem like a ninja could create what the shinobi sect has become, Kakuzu mused. What had drawn him wasn't the supposed ninshu heritage or even Sosuke's power, but the sect's atmosphere and, to an extent, Sosuke himself. "Haha, Leader Kakuzu, you've done a lot for us too," Yahiko grinned, used to Kakuzu's tone. "Good to hear," Kakuzu said, as if accepting praise calmly. "You can't move an inch in this world without money." "Can origami be sold?" Conan asked, curious. Mu Yue had often praised her paper folding, and she wondered if it might be a source of income. Kakuzu glanced at her with a hint of regret. "If you'd finished in the top 4 of the tournament, you could have made serious money with those complex pieces." Because he'd swapped money-making ideas with Mu Yue, Kakuzu had widened his horizons. If Konan had been one of the top 4, her origami would have been the only female ninja's handmade work among them, a unique selling point, and her charm would have been another plus. But she hadn't made the top 4, and in the ninja world, strength mattered more than charm. Pretty alone wasn't enough. You had to be both strong and pretty. Konan frowned for a moment, then brightened. Then let Nagato make origami to sell. He's number 1. "Nagato, it won't work. Nagato's origami wouldn't sell like yours," Kakuzu said decisively. Everything about Nagato's image, the powerful ninjutsu, the ease with which he wielded repulsive force, didn't fit delicate crafts like origami. His fighting had a blunt, brutal beauty, not the gentle persona that would attract buyers. Oh right, Nagato doesn't even know how to fold, Konan admitted. The idea fizzled. Koja. Ghost suddenly floated out and hovered in front of Nagato, making a confident sound. Ghost, you want to help Nagato with origami? But you don't have hands, Konan said with a smile. Despite being otherworldly, Ghost had grown somewhat endearing to her. Koja? Ghost widened its eyes and looked at its body as if shocked by the lack of hands. Nagato smiled but kept himself composed. Ghost was his nin beast after all. Yahiko laughed aloud, unable to hold back. He'd been frightened by Ghost before. Ghost, looking a bit dejected, stuck out its long tongue and licked Yahiko. Yahiko was caught off guard. Immediately his body tingled, then went numb. He stumbled backward, losing balance. Nagato reacted in a flash and pulled him to safety. Just a lick and my body went numb. So your body really is poisonous, Yahiko complained, eyes on the purple mist Ghost emitted. He had a feeling Ghost carried poison, and he wasn't wrong. As a ghost-poison dual-type creature, it naturally exuded venom. Koja, Ghost puffed up proudly. It had poison, and it was proud of it. Luckily, it was still young, and the paralysis faded quickly. Yahiko was right back to eating, drinking, and chatting. Time flew. By the time Nagato came back to himself, the banquet had ended and people were heading off to training. Nagato felt a warm contentment. Meeting Mu Yue had changed his life. Before Mu Yue and the Shinobi sect, Nagato's happiest memories had been the days training under Jiraiya with Yahiko and Konan, though Jiraiya had been more of a caring elder than a strict teacher. Before Jiraiya, Nagato had wandered for a long time, living hand to mouth. He would have been thrilled if Jiraiya had reappeared. But when he weighed happiness against meaning, the present won out. In the Shinobi sect, he had Konan and Yahiko, people who grew with him and relied on each other, a teacher he could trust absolutely, and a whole group of ninjas sharing the same goals. The time with Jiraiya had been happy, but it hadn't changed the Land of Rain the way the Shinobi sect now did. They were bringing peace and preventing more children from becoming war orphans. This life felt more meaningful. Teacher Mu Yue, Nagato called from the lounge, using Mu Yue's real name. In private, he preferred the familiarity. Mu Yue nodded and started guiding Nagato through yang release breathing. It was crucial because Nagato's Rinnegan wasn't naturally his. If he used it casually, his body could handle it because of the massive chakra he possessed. But full-power techniques like Almighty Push or activating the Outer Path demonic statue would injure him. Yang release breathing wouldn't cure the problem entirely, but cultivated to a high level, it could greatly mitigate the damage and prevent those techniques from shortening his lifespan. A few hours later, Mu Yue let Nagato rest and stepped out. He came back carrying 2 steaming bowls of ramen and handed one to Nagato with a smile. Eat while it's hot. It won't be as good once it cools. Nagato, hungry after training, thanked him and dug in. The aroma was intoxicating. A few quick mouthfuls and a sip of broth swept the fatigue from Nagato's body. The ramen warmed him through, invigorating him completely. It tasted so good that he almost imagined the bowl vanished after mere bites, an illusion caused by how absorbed he'd been. There had been plenty, but he'd eaten with such relish that it felt like nothing. Thank you, Teacher Mu Yue. You went to a lot of trouble, Nagato said, genuinely grateful. With so many sect duties, Mu Yue still took time to cook for. Nagato felt a little embarrassed by the kindness. No trouble at all. I was hungry too, Mu Yue said, smiling. You gifted your disciple a handmade bowl of top-tier ramen. Your disciple is immensely grateful and receives a supercritical reward, obtaining Water Release Chakra Nature Transformation, perfect level. The message arrived, and a surge of Water Release Chakra Nature Transformation memories flooded Mu Yue's mind. His understanding sharpened instantly, and his water release proficiency leaped forward. His smile grew broader. Disciple return rewards depended on luck, sometimes a particular jutsu, sometimes a nature transformation. Compared with a perfect level jutsu, a perfect level nature transformation was more valuable for strengthening overall power. If it had been lightning release, that would have been perfect, Mu Yue thought, glancing at his skill panel. But perfect level water release is pretty lucky. Skills: Fire Release Chakra Nature Transformation, perfect level. Water Release Chakra Nature Transformation, perfect level 1. Lightning Release Chakra Nature Transformation, mastery level 7060. One thought cut had come from an S+ extraction scroll. If Mu Yue's lightning release could reach perfect level, one thought cut would become far more potent. However, water release needed only 5,000 more proficiency points to reach another perfect level, whereas lightning needed 8,000, much harder to farm by himself. The higher a skill's rank, the tougher it got to raise proficiency. Mu Yue paused the thought of chasing perfect lightning for now. Perfect water was excellent luck, and if he tried to grind those missing 5,000 points alone, he might not manage it in 30 years. After sorting his thoughts, Mu Yue decided not to push Nagato back into training that night. After the late snack, it was nearly bedtime. They chatted instead. Nagato kept raving about the ramen. "I wonder when I'll get to eat ramen like that again," Nagato sighed. It had been the best meal he'd ever had. No, the best food he'd ever tasted. He felt a pang wishing Yahiko and Conan could have tried it, but he knew Mu Yue wasn't the sect's chef. Mu Yue had more pressing responsibilities, growing the Shinobi sect and handling relations with Konoha. Nagato couldn't, in good conscience, ask Mu Yue to cook again for everyone. He was already asking a lot. 547. Konoha's #1 is also #1, an unfamiliar ceiling. When Sasori opened his eyes, he was lying on his back in a small, bare room he didn't recognize. He rubbed his brow. Nagato had been merciless with him, and his whole body ached. The iron door across the room told him this was no ordinary house. He was in a prison-like cell. "Sosuke-sensei, he's awake." He turned toward the voice and saw Mu Yue and Nagato approaching the door. Sasori kept his face expressionless. "What is the meaning of this, Shinobi sect? I haven't made a move in your Six Paths city. Are you interfering in my personal revenge against the Konoha ninja?" Sasori thought for a moment and then spoke flatly. He was a rogue ninja from Sunagakure, but an obscure one. His defection wasn't publicized and no warrant had been issued. Since the murder of the third Kazekage had never been exposed, Sasori had only been labeled a deserter from Sunagakure. He still assumed his true deeds were unknown. Sasori, grandson of Chiyo, former Sunagakure advisor. Mu Yue cut the pretense short and named him outright. Sasori's hand went for his scroll, instinctively reaching to release his puppets. There was nothing. The scrolls and all of his belongings had been taken. Mu Yue had even used his Byakugan to search him, ensuring no puppet scrolls were hidden within his body. When Sasori tried to gather chakra, it felt like stagnant water. He couldn't mobilize it. A sealing technique bound him. The former genius puppeteer of Sunagakure, now a rogue ninja, Mu Yue continued. With his identity exposed and his chakra sealed, Sasori found himself helpless. "So what do you intend to do?" Sasori stared at Mu Yue and Nagato. In the ninja world, a rogue's life was at the very bottom. The Shinobi sect needed no justification to act against him, and they could kill him without fearing for repercussions. "That's our question to ask you," Nagato said in a low voice. "If you hadn't attacked a youth martial arts tournament participant, I wouldn't have intervened." Nagato left out another motive entirely. Sasori had attacked one of Nagato's fellow disciples. It was a truth Nagato couldn't voice. "Kakashi Hatake's father, the Konoha White Fang, killed my parents on the battlefield. I want to kill him for revenge. That's all," Sasori replied, indifferent. With his fate in the hands of the Shinobi sect, he had nothing more to hide. Nagato went quiet for a moment. He couldn't refute the motive. He knew that kind of pain. Nagato himself had watched his parents die. He understood the burning, unforgettable agony. "Based on your crimes, you'll undergo 10 years of labor reform in the Shinobi sect," Mu Yue declared, instead of trying to preach about understanding and letting go. "If you commit no further offenses during that time, you will be released." Talk like that required a foundation. Mu Yue could understand Sasori, but Sasori didn't understand Mu Yue or Nagato. If Mu Yue tried to speak of forgiveness now, it would ring hollow and likely make Sasori loathe him. 10 years, huh? That's not too late. Sasori accepted the sentence. In his position, fish beneath the cleaver, survival itself was a victory. 10 years could be enough to plan revenge. And if an escape presented itself, he wouldn't hesitate. He had killed the third Kazekage. Prison wouldn't stop him. "Nagato, I'll leave him to you. Take him to the construction team," Mu Yue said. He was giving Nagato a task. If Nagato could guide Sasori away from hatred, it would mark real growth. "All right." Nagato nodded, his eyes steady. He would not force Sasori to forsake revenge, but he aimed to show him something else that made living worth more than hatred. When Metkai had mostly recovered, Mu Yue and the others left the Land of Rain and returned to Konoha. At the gate they met three familiar faces. Mu Yue-sensei, Kotetsu Hagane, Izumo Kamizuki, and Anko Mitarashi greeted him in unison. Mu Yue smiled in return. "Why are you three on gate duty again?" Obito asked, curious. Gate duty was dull. Given the choice, he'd rather take a C-rank bandit subjugation than stand at the gate all day. "Obito, it's not gate duty, it's guarding Konoha's main gate," Izumo corrected solemnly. "That's right, we're guarding Konoha, holding back any invaders," Kotetsu added, arms crossed for effect. If not for their size, they might have looked imposing. Obito scratched his head, half impressed. They made even gate duty sound heroic. Anko, leaning against the wooden gate, cut in. "Honestly, we just found the pay on this mission was decent. Other D-rank jobs are boring too, so we take this sometimes." Gate guarding was a B-rank mission, and the minimum pay was 80,000 ryo. Excellent money for a newly formed team and a good addition to their records. "Do you know about the Youth Martial Arts Tournament? It brings together young talents from across the ninja world," Obito said after a moment, eager. He wasn't the type to hide achievements. If he'd placed second or better, he wanted people to know. "I've heard of it. Sounds impressive," Kotetsu replied, remembering the stories. "Could it be that Obito ni won first place?" Anko asked, curious. Obito's proud look suggested something big. Obito froze. She jumped straight to first place. Shouldn't she ask if he'd made the top 8? Then he could have casually mentioned being among the top 2. He bristled, but then laughed it off as Kakashi did. "Among all Konoha participants, I was first," Obito declared. He meant first among Konoha's contestants. After all, the other person in the top 2 was Nagato, who wasn't from Konoha. Kotetsu erupted. "Obito ni is Konoha's number 1, and his voice carried, drawing curious looks from passers-by. Obito panicked. "Stop! First place among Konoha's participants in the Youth Martial Arts Tournament. Don't go changing the words." He liked the spirit of Kotetsu's declaration, but it was too soon to be labeled Konoha's top ninja. "Are you going to stand guard with them?" Kakashi reminded him. Obito realized the others had already gone into Konoha while he lingered at the gate. "I'll guide you guys when I have time," he added, waving to the trio before heading inside. "You can plan your schedules for today and tomorrow. If you're free the day after, come train in the South Border Forest. Obito, Shisui, you two must not miss this. I have a new ninjutsu to teach," Mu Yue announced. This time, though not a mission, the training was significant, so he gave them 2 days off to prepare. "A new ninjutsu?" Obito's eyes lit up. Whatever it was, Mu Yue's tone suggested it wouldn't be ordinary. Their current skills had little room for improvement through mundane techniques. Mu Yue's hint felt like a promise of something powerful. "Fire release?" Shisui guessed. Their overlapping specialty made it the obvious bet. Obito's hope dimmed. Fire release felt like his weak suit. Even Konoha's Hokage hadn't been known for spectacular fire techniques. "Yes, fire release, and a very strong fire release," Mu Yue confirmed. Obito's excitement returned. Mu Yue had the knack for turning even baseline skills into something extraordinary. "Mu Yue-sensei, how does it compare to One Thought Cut?" Obito asked bluntly. He was tired of feeling inferior to Kakashi. "At the same level," Mu Yue replied. Obito clenched his fists. Finally, no more being a fire-release bottom feeder. Mastering this would change everything. Kakashi turned the words over in his mind. The same level as One Thought Cut. He could almost feel the raw, crushing power of that technique. One Thought Cut was an ultimate lightning release blade technique capable of felling even him in a single strike. Could Mu Yue really be a reincarnated immortal? Kakashi thought. The abilities Mu Yue displayed were beyond normal. At 21, Mu Yue had developed multiple breathing techniques, an armament hockey-like secret art, golden skyline, and devastating skills like One Thought Cut. He even possessed a breathing technique with dual benefits, a breathing chakra mode, and a transparent world ability. On top of that, Mu Yue, he wielded a space-time ninjutsu reminiscent of Flying Thunder God technique. How had someone of his age produced so many advanced secret techniques? Another question gnawed at Kakashi. What kind of lethal trap could kill someone like Mu Yue? Kakashi believed Mu Yue marched among the Sannin-level elite. Someone with such a vast arsenal, with escape options and raw prowess, how could they be felled? Kakashi couldn't imagine it. He pushed the thought away. The important thing now was training. If he had strength, he could help Mu Yue if danger ever struck. If he was weak, even knowing the danger would be useless. Kakashi set off toward the south border forest. Obito and Shisui followed, eager to catch up. They'd always worked hard to close the gap with Kakashi and Metkai, and to surpass them. "Goodbye, everyone. I'm going to Tsunade-sensei's," Rin Nohara said, waving. Rin accepted the importance of strength, but saw her primary role as a medical ninja. The fight with Sasori had revealed weaknesses in her ability to handle poisons. She wanted to learn more about detoxification from Tsunade. Metkai said his farewells too and went home. His injuries weren't fully healed, so he would focus on recovery exercises rather than intense training. 548. Different ways of getting along. When the three of them reached the south border forest, they found Yamato training. "Kakashi-senpai, your matches are over," he called, grinning at the seniors he hadn't seen in a while. Obito greeted them with a proud smile. "Yamato, you heard I got second in the youth martial arts tournament and ended up Konoha's highest-ranked ninja?" He rattled the words off in one breath and then beamed. Yamato blinked. Did he just announce his placement like that? "Wasn't first taken by the seniors?" Yamato asked. He'd assumed Metkai or Kakashi would be top, but neither had even placed ahead of Obito. "That's really impressive." "Not bad," Obito said, clapping Yamato on the shoulder with the smug satisfaction of a senior giving encouragement. "Train for a few more years, and if there's another tournament, you'll place well too." "I won't disgrace my seniors or Mu Yue-sensei," Yamato declared, fired up. "How about you two?" Yamato turned to Kakashi and Shisui, curiosity written on his face after Obito's unexpected announcement. "Quarterfinals," Kakashi answered. "Final four," Shisui said. Obito straightened, satisfied to be the Konoha competitor with the best result. Greatness, it seemed, needed no explanation. "Are there that many geniuses in the tournament? Even Kakashi-senpai only made the quarters?" Yamato asked, surprised. Suddenly, the whole event seemed much more formidable. "There are a lot of geniuses," Kakashi said. "My quarterfinal opponent was Guy." With the beast evolutions aside, Nagato, Metkai, and Sasori were the three strongest fighters in the tournament, the kind of opponents who would eliminate most contenders on sight. Yamato understood at once. The match draw could be a matter of luck as much as skill, and Kakashi had simply had average luck. "Which village is the first-place ninja from?" Yamato pressed. He wanted to know who had beaten the seniors and claimed the title. "His name is Nagato," Kakashi said. "He isn't from any of the 5 great villages. He's from the Shinobi sect, the group that organized the youth martial arts tournament." Yamato was stunned. "So he's not from the 5 great Shinobi villages?" "Don't underestimate other organizations," Kakashi warned. "The average ninja quality in the 5 great villages is higher, but once in a while a genius appears who defies expectations." He thought of men like the old Hanzo, Sosuke, and Nagato. They might not change the overall balance, but underestimating them could be disastrous. After a pause in his training, Obito decided to summon his Charizard from home. With a burst of white smoke, the powerful Charizard appeared at his side. Yamato's eyes widened. He had only seen Charizard back when it was Charmeleon. The evolution surprised him. Charizard took in the surroundings, then gathered chakra and unleashed a pillar of flame at Obito to give him a taste of fire release. Obito had expected it. He'd already activated his Sharingan and sidestepped the blast. "That's Obito-senpai's Nin Beast. It must have evolved," Yamato said. "Its appearance changed a lot." "Charizard, I think we should learn from others. Training shouldn't be all about sparring," Obito suggested seriously. Charizard crossed its arms and snorted, steam puffing from its nostrils. When it had been weaker, Obito had bullied it daily. Now it was strong and proud. It wasn't about to change its attitude just because Obito said so. "Awoo," Zorua, perched on Shisui's shoulder, chimed in. "Combat training makes us stronger and builds tacit coordination." It was translating for Obito and Charizard. Obito frowned. "Tacit coordination for combo attacks, huh?" Since Charizard had given that reason, Obito found it hard to argue. Kakashi shook his head and used his summoning technique as well. A grown Rockruff materialized beside him. Yamato glanced at the dusk Rockruff and, despite the evolution, recognized many of its old mannerisms. Rockruff still loved being petted and nudged Kakashi for attention, and Kakashi obliged, stroking its head. "That's nice," Yamato said. He felt a little envious. Even if his own nin beast wasn't as powerful as theirs, he wanted one. As the day wore on, they trained until the sun dipped west. At dusk, they called it quits to go home for dinner. "Little Charizard," Obito muttered, "once I learn the fire release Mu Yue sensei teaches, Blue Flame, we'll see if you still act so arrogant." He was eager for the lesson. Charizard's pride just made him more determined to master a jutsu that would get its attention. Since Shisui and Obito were heading the same way, Charizard and Zorua kept company, the two creatures quietly plotting the evening's strategy on how to deal with Obito. Charizard favored blunt force, heavy claws. Zorua defended Shisui's reputation. Obito felt a chill down his spine as he watched them, unable to decipher their shorthand. At the fork in the road, Shisui waved to Zorua. Zorua leaped up to land on Shisui's shoulder, but Shisui caught him and held him instead. He was tired after a long day of training. His shoulder couldn't really bear the extra strain without complaint. Shisui didn't have family waiting at home with a warm meal and someone to look after him. He couldn't risk pulling something and ending up with instant noodles and a sad bowl of dog food. After a simple dinner, Shisui took Zorua out for a walk and headed toward the Uchiha household. Uchiha Fugaku had followed the tournament with interest, and Shisui wanted to see whether their performances might change Fugaku's thinking, especially regarding his reform plans for the police force. In Shisui's view, reforming the police force was a necessary step to solve the Uchiha problem. He had confronted Fugaku before, asking for his support, but back then he'd misjudged how much the police force's prestige mattered to the Uchiha. Now, with Obito's Pokemon evolved and the martial arts tournament boosting their reputations, he wondered if Fugaku would think differently. Fugaku and the family were finishing dinner when Shisui arrived. Itachi's eyes brightened a little at the sight of him. "Shisui," Fugaku said with a smile, "congratulations on reaching the Final Four." Fugaku had expected great things of Shisui and Obito. In his mind, they were the two most outstanding prodigies in the clan in recent decades. But as he'd observed more of the tournament, he realized it had been a true battle of dragons and tigers, far tougher than he'd imagined, and the rankings were meaningful. "Part of it was luck in the draw," Shisui replied modestly. "I still need more training." He admitted Kakashi and Sasori were stronger. If he'd met them earlier, he would likely have been knocked out. "Itachi, you should learn from Shisui," Fugaku told his son with approval. "Even being so excellent, he stays humble and keeps working." Itachi nodded. There were many things he didn't understand yet, but he respected Shisui and felt a quiet longing to match that level. "Uncle Fugaku, you flatter me," Shisui said with a smile as he moved closer to Itachi. "Maybe Itachi will surpass me in the future." Itachi smiled at the praise from an admired senior. Fugaku joined in, pleased at the thought of his son excelling. When pleasantries wound down, Shisui said the real reason for his visit. "Uncle Fugaku, I'd like to discuss some family matters." "Take good care of Itachi, Makoto," Fugaku said as he led Shisui toward his study. "Itachi, Zorua is temporarily your responsibility." Shisui left Zorua by Itachi. "Even Shisui shouldn't underestimate me. I can look after him," Zorua said, puffing out its cheeks. The fox's voice startled Itachi. Though he'd seen Zorua before, this was the first time Zorua had used telepathic speech in front of him. Zorua's speaking was a form of mental communication, something it used with companions or interesting strangers, not all the time. Fugaku watched with interest. He'd seen speaking nin beasts before, and though rare, this wasn't entirely unexpected. Zorua's method of communicating, however, reminded him faintly of the Yamanaka clan's technique. Suppressing his curiosity, Fugaku invited Shisui into the study for a private conversation. He dreaded the topic. Police force reform carried too many vested interests and political risks, even if he, as a chief beneficiary, was sympathetic. Meanwhile, Uchiha Makoto couldn't resist the cute Zorua. "Can I hold him?" she asked gently. "Humph. I, Zorua, am not someone anyone can hold," the fox said, but seeing she was kind, he relented. "Since you ask nicely, I'll let you. For 1 minute." Makoto cradled Zorua on her lap, stroking his fur and scratching under his chin like she would a cat. Zorua closed his eyes in bliss. It felt unctuously good. He planned to make Shisui try the same pampering when they got home, but for now he basked in the gentle attention. Inside, the adults continued their discussions. Outside, a small fox enjoyed the simple pleasure of being petted. Different ways of getting along, each in their own style. Chapter 549. Jiraiya noticed Nagato. Uncle Fugaku, have you thought any more about reforming the police force? Inside the study, Shisui raised the matter again. Uchiha Fugaku rubbed his brow. He had expected Shisui to bring it up, but that didn't make it any less tiring. Sometimes maturity wasn't a blessing. The more considered Shisui's plans were, the more trouble they caused. Obito, by contrast, was obedient and quiet at clan meetings. Thinking for oneself was good, Fugaku knew, but Shisui's eagerness bordered on the extreme, more radical than the radicals, already calling for changes to the police force. Uncle Fugaku, maybe you misunderstood me, Shisui said calmly. We don't need to upend the entire system at once. Start slowly. We don't have to change any current positions. We just add a few new ninja to the police force who aren't Uchiha. Shisui knew the reform would face stiff resistance from within the clan, so he wanted a gradual approach. Most Uchiha weren't malicious. They simply lacked understanding. This isn't something you can decide on your own, Fugaku said, shaking his head. It must be reported to 3rd Hokage-sama and approved first. As captain of the police force, Fugaku had authority to appoint and dismiss within it, but he couldn't create positions. The clan's police force was a fixed institution. Adding posts required applying to the current Hokage, and Shisui's proposal went against rules set back in the 2nd Hokage's time. It absolutely needed official approval. So, Uncle Fugaku, do you think it's feasible? Shisui asked. He had to push this forward. If he couldn't make this small, necessary step, how could he hope to change the entire Uchiha? Even adding a single non-Uchiha to the police force would be symbolic. Proof the clan could relinquish exclusive control. It's not that simple. The elders will most likely object, Fugaku warned. Many of the active clan members could be persuaded if they were told current posts wouldn't be affected, but the elders were shrewd. A boiling frog tactic wouldn't work on them. If there's a clan meeting next week, maybe I can bring it up there? Shisui asked after a moment. If Fugaku thought this was difficult, Shisui could test the waters at the meeting. As the clan's famous prodigy, he had leeway to experiment. Yes, there is, Fugaku replied. Do you want to propose it there? He added a caution. If you put it before the clan, I won't be able to openly support you. As head of the clan, Fugaku was the final arbiter at meetings. He would weigh popular support and whether a proposal benefited the Uchiha before letting it pass. That's fine. I'll ask Obito to come with me, Shisui said. Obito disliked clan meetings and rarely attended, except the first time, but Shisui needed more backing. Even if Obito hated the atmosphere, he'd have to be recruited. Disciples, clan members, friends, Shisui couldn't shoulder this alone. Obito, huh? I hope it goes well, Fugaku said. Obito, who'd placed second in the martial arts tournament, and Shisui, a 4 finalist, 2 rising Uchiha geniuses together, demanded attention. Fugaku found his own attitude shifting. When Shisui first suggested replacing Uchiha in the police force with outsiders, Fugaku had thought it blasphemous. Now, seeing Shisui's persistence, Fugaku realized he was serious. This wasn't impulse. Shisui and Obito could very well be the future leaders of the clan. Rather than resist and wait for a drastic takeover later, Fugaku preferred Shisui prove himself and carry out reforms step by step. Thanks for your time, Shisui said, rising. It's nothing. If you need to talk more, you know where to find me, and Itachi likes you a great deal, Fugaku said, smiling as he saw him out. In the courtyard, Zorua lay belly up while Uchiha Makoto rubbed it. When Shisui appeared, Zorua flipped upright and patted over as if nothing had happened. Shisuini, you're leaving? Itachi asked. Shisui hadn't had a chance to speak to him alone this visit. Yes, I still have training to finish, Shisui replied. Nod. Ding. See you. Itachi looked reluctant, but didn't try to stop him. Come visit again when you have time, Makoto called, waving. Fugaku watched Shisui walk away with a complex expression. Shisui could change the Uchiha. Fugaku was sure of that, but whether the change would be for better or worse, he didn't yet know. Back in his small courtyard, Shisui resumed training in fire release chakra nature transformation and flame breathing. Mu Yue had told him the next ninjutsu he'd teach would be fire release, so Shisui wanted to review fire techniques to speed his learning. Shisui is amazing. When I think both you and Obito are Uchiha, it feels like Obito's gotten lucky. Zorua cheered like a cheerleader. Bang! Shisui appeared behind Zorua and gave it a playful chop. Don't put one down to praise the other, he said, rubbing the patch of fiery red fur on Zorua's head. It's true, isn't it? Ask Charizard and Rockruff. Everyone thinks so, Zorua replied without missing a beat. Given Charizard's relationship with Obito, it would back up any jab at him. Rockruff was close to Kakashi and tended to side against Obito. Train hard. You play with Charizard all the time. It's evolved twice, and you haven't evolved once, Shisui teased, tugging at Zorua's cheek. He wasn't in any real rush for Zorua to evolve, but he wanted to motivate it. What's so great about evolving? If I get that big, I won't be able to sit on your shoulder, Zorua pouted. You should be more considerate. You're not light, and you love to perch on my shoulder. Zorua weighed 15 kilograms. Without Shisui's strength and breathing training, even an ordinary 9-year-old would have trouble supporting that weight. My head's a bit dizzy. What did you say? Zorua pretended not to hear, and Shisui went back to training. After training until 9 in the evening, Shisui took Zorua to Obito's house. Anything later and he'd be disturbing Obito's grandmother. There's a clan meeting in a week. Can you make it? Shisui asked directly. A clan meeting, huh? Do you need me there? I should be free, unless an urgent mission pops up, Obito replied. Urgent missions were unpredictable, so he couldn't promise absolutely. Then I'll count on you, Shisui nodded. Obito was indispensable to Shisui's plan. Have you eaten? Charizard greeted Zorua enthusiastically. Zorua jabbed back. No wonder Melodic ignores you. You don't know how to talk, which left Charizard looking stunned at its trusted partner's aggression. Grass Country. Ever since the plan to jointly eliminate Iwagakure's forces with the Grass Ninja was exposed, the fighting there had mysteriously calmed. No major clashes had erupted, and overall Konoha's forces had the advantage. Iwagakure's activity was being squeezed by Konoha, and Konoha's situation looked excellent. With the front line calmer, Jiraiya as unit commander finally had some free time to notice news he'd missed. News of the youth martial arts tournament had spread quickly from the Land of Rain into the neighboring Grass Country. Jiraiya skimmed the report and paused. The youth martial arts tournament's champion, Nagato? He muttered, surprised. He'd known it was a ninja competition organized by the Land of Rain, but Nagato's name leapt out at him. Nagato, his former charge, the boy he'd once looked after with Yahiko and Konan. The child of prophecy, perhaps, Jiraiya thought. If he can control the Rinnegan now, that title fits. Memories of those 3 years in the Land of Rain softened Jiraiya's face. Nagato's become excellent. I wonder how Yahiko and Konan did. He dug deeper into the reports. Yahiko had been eliminated in the first round, Konan in the second. Jiraiya also noted that Obito had come in second, above Kakashi and Metkai. Has Obito improved that much? Jiraiya was pleasantly surprised to see Konoha ninjas performing well. The more he read, the more he wanted to visit the Land of Rain and see Nagato himself. With no pressing battles in the Grass Country and Minato Namikaze, a capable and respected lieutenant, in his unit, Jiraiya felt he could leave. He called Minato into his tent. If you won't be gone too long, I can cover for you, Minato said after thinking. There were concerns. 2 Iwagakure Jinchuriki who could perform full-tailed beast transformation were at peak strength, but Minato was confident he could handle things for a time. I won't be gone long, Jiraiya said, laughing and patting Minato on the shoulder. He knew the situation's seriousness and wasn't planning to wander off with the carefree ways of a younger man. After learning about Nagato's progress, he intended to return to his duties. Finally, Jiraiya submitted a formal request to the Konoha main camp. Even as a commander, it would be irresponsible to leave without reporting, and although doing so might let him avoid Hokage responsibilities for a while, it would be impolite to do it that way. No text for this chapter. Let's proceed to the next chapter. No text for this chapter. Let's proceed to the next chapter. 552. Something I want to say. First, the main chapter update for today will still come, but a little later. Xiaoju suggests you read it tomorrow. Staying up late is bad for your health. I meant to put in the author's notes, but it grew too long, so I'm publishing it as its own chapter. Writing this extra story was harder than I expected. Partly it was my own irregular schedule, but largely it was the challenge of creation itself. The events I wrote take place close to the time of Naruto's Ryumyaku mission. What my protagonist taught Uzumaki Naruto wasn't enough to change Naruto's surroundings, so the plot had to stay basically true to the original story. As a fanfiction author, though, it felt wrong to simply charge for the original material, so I had to make it different. That's why I snuck some later outline elements into Naruto's extra story, like the breathing technique that guides natural energy. The battles were another source of torment. They had to be new, but also believable, and finding that balance really tortured me. Most frustrating of all was the dialogue. I couldn't reproduce the original lines. Doing so would feel like filler, but leaving them out made scenes feel disjointed. I had to find different ways to compensate and to streamline the scenes. It's a relief that I finally finished it. No more of that particular torment for a while. Hooray! My original plan was to write one of these extra stories every month or two until the Naruto world and the extras and Mu Yue's world intersect again. How and why they intersect, you can guess. That future plot will be fun. Imagine things like Obito fighting Obito. But this time was truly exhausting, and I'm not sure what everyone will think of this extra story. So I'll decide whether to continue this thread based on your feedback. If readers like it and want more, I'll write more when I can. If not, I won't keep going with it, though the intersection plot will still happen, because in a sense, it's part of the main storyline. 553, Reunion, Six-Path City. Jiraiya tilted his head at the large stone marker by the roadside and smiled with interest. Since Nagato had become a Shinobi sect ninja, Jiraiya had done his homework on the Shinobi sect and had grown increasingly curious about both the sect and its founder, Sosuke. In an age of endless war, how could he not be intrigued by a top shinobi who set aside factional prejudices to teach everyone and who established an organization devoted to peace? It's a fine, up-and-coming town. Once inside Six-Path City, Jiraiya wandered around, taking it in. The youth martial arts tournament was over, so the city had calmed from its recent bustle. But it wasn't empty. It had settled back into normal life. The Shinobi sect's show of strength and the tide of public opinion had driven many to buy property here, and the city had taken in displaced people and refugees from the wars. Six-Path City was quietly growing. I shouldn't dawdle. After exploring about a third of the town, Jiraiya refocused and began asking around about Nagato. He wasn't in such a hurry that he couldn't linger and look around, but he wanted time to talk with Nagato and the others and learn more about the Shinobi sect. Jiraiya's approach was straightforward. He asked a rain ninja directly. He'd come openly, no need to hide. The ninja didn't immediately answer. Why would a stranger get details about sect members? Still, the ninja kept glancing at Jiraiya, struck by a vague familiarity. The Konoha Sannin? The shinobi muttered, recognition dawning. Right you are, one of the legendary Sannin, Lord Jiraiya himself, the handsome man who can even make children stop crying. Jiraiya announced, unabashed. Oh, Lord Jiraiya, the ninja stammered, suddenly respectful. Please wait a moment. I'm not certain. I should ask. Strength commanded respect in the shinobi world. Even across factions, the Sannin's reputation made them notable. Jiraiya nodded, understanding that his sudden appearance in shinobi sect territory warranted a report. After a short wait, the rain ninja returned and led him to the shinobi sect's main training ground. Jiraiya-sensei? Am I dreaming? Yahiko, training nearby, froze in disbelief. He hadn't seen Jiraiya in so long, except for the 3 years Jiraiya had spent with them. Those years had been a rare stretch of warmth in a life otherwise defined by war and hardship. Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan had been orphans then. Jiraiya's care had been a miracle. Ha, being too outstanding really is a problem. Missed so much, am I? Jiraiya crowed, striding forward to clap Yahiko on the shoulder. He watched the 3 trainees carefully. Even without the appraisal technique, time had changed them. Their heights and appearances weren't quite what he remembered. So it's real. Feeling Jiraiya's broad hand on his shoulder, Yahiko brightened. Jiraiya-sensei, I missed you. Me too. Jiraiya replied heartily. Konan, graceful and composed, produced a paper flower with a secret technique and offered it to him. The gesture brought Jiraiya back to their first meeting, when he, Orochimaru, and the others had rested after the Hanzo battle and found the 3 war orphans. Then Konan and Nagato had hidden in fear, while Yako had boldly asked for food. Konan had folded the biscuit wrapper into a flower as thanks. That memory was why Jiraiya had stayed in the Land of Rain instead of returning directly to Konoha. Konan, more beautiful, and your origami's improved, he said warmly. Jiraiya-sensei is as handsome as ever, Konan replied with a smile. Jiraiya's face hadn't changed much to her, only a touch more mature. Nagato didn't greet with Yahiko's fire or Konan's flourish. He walked quietly to Jiraiya and simply said, Sensei. Jiraiya looked into Nagato's eyes, those remarkable eyes like the sage of 6 paths, and put a hand on his shoulder. Nagato, you've done very well. You've walked a path that surpasses mine. Nagato shook his head modestly. I am not as noteworthy as you say. I only follow the path others have shown. You're being too modest. Right now, many call you the ninja world's #1 genius. Don't downplay it. Jiraiya teased. If he'd had Nagato's reputation back then, he grinned, he'd have argued with Hiruzen Sarutobi 3 times a day. It's just a small reputation. I still have much to learn, Nagato said. Jiraiya realized Nagato had been thinking of different paths. Nagato meant the road to peace, not the recent gossip about him. Yahiko tossed his head dramatically. That's what happens when you get first place. You get praised all the time. Hey, Jiraiya-sensei probably doesn't even know we were in the tournament, right? Konan, no good at lying, could only nod with an earnest expression. Jiraiya looked slightly sheepish. He had gathered some information earlier and knew their rankings, but it was Nagato who'd drawn him back to the Land of Rain in the first place. Ahem, actually, I do know. Yahiko, you were knocked out in the first round of the eliminations. Konan, the second, Jiraiya said. It was a gathering of geniuses. Early elimination can just be bad luck. Still, you both made the knockout stage, which is worth celebrating. Tonight's on me, an all-you-can-eat feast. To make up for the years away, Jiraiya offered to treat them. Yahiko protested with a laugh. We can pay now. We want to treat you, Sensei. We insist, Konan agreed. Nagato suggested instead, why don't we make it ourselves? He wasn't being stingy. He felt cooking together would recapture the old atmosphere. Nagato, you genius. Let's go fishing like old times. Yahiko exclaimed, slinging an arm around Nagato as he rushed to gather gear. Shinobi sect duties and training had kept them busy, and it had been ages since they'd fished and had a barbecue together. Jiraiya supported the idea. Let's see if you still remember the techniques I taught. They found a small river nearby and cast lines. Whether it was rust or unlucky timing, Jiraiya watched Yahiko catch fish after fish while his own haul lagged behind. A great teacher raises disciples greater than himself, Jiraiya told himself as Yahiko's bucket brimmed. Nagato and Konan had more unusual catches, bits of trash and even a shoe. Jiraiya laughed and tried to be consoling. Almighty pull. Nagato zeroed in on a fish, used his left hand to pull it toward him, and then hooked it precisely with his rod. Calmly he reeled it in. I caught one too, he said. Not bad, Jiraiya gave him a thumbs up, more for the control than the fishing skill. Konan folded a paper fish, disguised it with chakra, and made it look real before dropping it into the water. Jiraiya praised her as well. Among their peers, Konan and Yahiko were impressive. Nagato and the others have changed, he thought, noting Nagato's livelier demeanor and Konan's more generous optimism. He found himself curious about what had happened to them in the years since he left. As the contest went, Yahiko clearly won. Nagato hadn't been serious about fishing at first, but with a sweep of his hand, almighty pull, he drew in a plump fish big enough to fill a bucket. Yahiko couldn't help but glare at the fatty catch with mock irritation. A fish caught like that has no soul, he declared. Once the feast began, Jiraiya's cooking drew praise. The fish have to be big to be truly satisfying. Jiraiya-sensei, your cooking's still top-notch. Yahiko munched happily. Jiraiya had traveled enough to know how to feed a crowd. His cooking wasn't Mu Yue's, but it did the job. So tell me about what you've been up to since I left, Jiraiya said between bites. It could make a best-selling novel. He was genuinely curious. What had Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato experienced? How had they spent their time? Why had they joined the Shinobi sect? Of course, you don't have to tell me everything, just what you want to share, he added. Everyone carries some things in life that are hard to talk about. Yahiko listened to Jiraya's suggestion with obvious interest. He'd been meaning to tell their story anyway. After you left, Jiraiya-sensei, we tried to help bring peace to the land of rain with our own strength, he began. At first, we helped villages fend off attacking ninja. He set his chopsticks down, picked up his teacup, and told them everything. Yahiko had never intended to found an organization at the start. He'd been a fledgling kid, lacking strength, knowledge, and experience. The land of rain was chaotic, but even there some ninja yearned for peace. Through steady action, Yahiko and his friends attracted others, until the Akatsuki organization formed. He didn't linger on that period. There wasn't much to say. Compared to the Shinobi sect's influence on the Land of Rain, the Akatsuki organization was just small scale. Our slogans were loud, but the actual impact was limited, Yahiko said, sipping water to clear his throat. As a young man, what you did is something to be proud of, Jiraiya said with genuine encouragement. Yahiko had been an orphan with no formal schooling, yet he'd acted on big ideals. Jiraiya admired that. Yahiko smiled and moved on to the story of their first meeting with Sosuke. He didn't mean to imply the Akatsuki period was bad, just that the meeting with Sosuke mattered far more. Sosuke-sensei may have heard of the Akatsuki and been curious about our ideals, Yahiko said, regret flickering across his face. I disappointed him. I knew almost nothing. From that first meeting, Yahiko had taken Sosuke for a crucial figure, someone who could promote peace in the Land of Rain. He regretted only that he'd answered poorly and probably disappointed Sosuke. Jiraiya listened, stroking his chin. Yahiko's description brought an image of Sosuke to mind that reminded him of Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage, serious and meticulous in contrast to an elder brother's bluntness. Jiraiya liked people who were serious and meticulous about their work and ideals, though he thought being like that about every little thing would be exhausting. Sosuke-sensei is very serious with big matters, but relaxed when teaching, Yahiko continued. The Shinobi sect's growth was inseparable from Sosuke and his lectures. Sosuke traveled the Land of Rain teaching, and Yahiko attended those lectures until he decided to join. He even disbanded the Akatsuki and folded its members into the Shinobi sect. It's terrible when decisions are made by someone without sufficient ability, Yahiko said. When Yahiko mentioned the crisis that nearly destroyed the Shinobi sect, he blamed himself without hesitation. His naivety had played a part. At that time, the Shinobi sect was small. Yahiko still led the Akatsuki and had comrades backing him. His words swayed some sect ninja, and the vote tipped toward cooperation. Jiraiya was surprised to learn Yahiko had been there. The battle that made Sosuke famous was well known even to him. Most people only remembered one thing. Sosuke's fire release was invincible, able to defeat Hanzo's water release by exploiting a reverse affinity. Jiraiya hadn't known about Nagato and Yahiko, minor figures to the wider world, but as Yahiko spoke, Sosuke's image filled out, a man with a dream of world peace, rigorous and serious, an excellent teacher who educated without discrimination, and someone who could put aside the Rain Village's hatred for the sake of peace in the Land of Rain. Have I been too busy these past few years? Jiraiya sighed softly. Such an interesting person has appeared in the ninja world, and I didn't even notice. He put himself in Sosuke's place and felt he might not have done the same things. Seeing Yahiko and Nagato's hard road moved him. Yahiko, Nagato, you two have been through a lot. Tonight, I'll cook dinner for you, he said with a smile. Meeting like-minded companions, forming an organization, encountering a powerful senior with the same dream, and enduring hardships together. Nagato and Yahiko's story was enough to be a novel. Yay! Yahiko cheered. A free dinner was welcome, and Araya's staying into the evening pleased him even more. After lunch, Jiraiya took his teacher's duty seriously and offered to train Nagato and the others. They were eager, so they went to the training ground outside the village. Jiraiya hadn't seen them in years and had only some intelligence on their abilities, so he wanted to spar with them one-on-one rather than all at once. Otherwise, it would become Nagato's solo show, given their differences in strength. How about I go first? Yahiko offered. Konan and Nagato had no objections, so Yahiko took position opposite Jiraiya. Use everything you've mastered. Don't hold back. Show me your full potential, Jiraiya said confidently. He was one of the famous strong ones in the ninja world. He felt no need to be modest. Jiraiya-sensei, excuse me, Yahiko replied. He didn't hold back. He gathered his strength and charged, focusing his breathing technique to boost his physical power. Yahiko practiced a branch of rock breathing developed by Mu Yue, called ninja breathing. It actually split into two forms, one to enhance strength, paired with a taijutsu similar to a tempest kick, and the other to enhance defense, paired with a defensive ninjutsu akin to iron body. The two could be trained simultaneously but not used at the same time. You couldn't have both extreme power and extreme defense like true rock breathing. But the training was easier, and under Mu Yue's guidance, even average shinobi sect ninja could learn one or the other. Yahiko had talent and had learned both forms. He began by throwing two kunai. Jiraiya easily drew one from his pouch and blocked them. Seizing the moment, Jiraiya swung his weapon. Yahiko whipped his leg into a crescent-shaped chakra slash. Jiraiya's combat senses were sharp. He turned his body aside and avoided the kick. The slash hit a tree, carving a deep mark and nearly cutting it down. Decent force, but slow, Jiraiya remarked. That strike could hurt a ninja badly if it landed. Yahiko didn't falter. He concentrated chakra and formed 3 water spears, launching them at Jiraiya. Jiraiya formed hand signs and called up a thick earth wall, earth release, earth flow wall, which absorbed the spears and only left dents. When ninjutsu failed, Yahiko switched back to his breathing technique and closed for taijutsu again. They traded blows while Jiraiya, watching closely, raised the difficulty. A feint revealed Yahiko's weakness. Calmly, Yahiko used his defensive ninjutsu, what the shinobi sect called their version of iron body, nicknamed the turtle shell technique. He infused his breathing technique into his body and hardened himself with earth-release chakra, making his defenses resist even ninjutsu. Jiraiya struck. Yahiko didn't budge, and Jiraiya felt the reactive force in his own fist. Yahiko smiled with pride. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. Yahiko had gotten a little carried away while Jiraiya was holding back. Then Jiraiya's palm flared with much greater chakra and he struck again, a rapid blow that sent Yahiko flying. It's not wrong to use defensive ninjutsu when you can't avoid an attack, Jiraiya advised as Yahiko recovered, but you must disengage or counter immediately afterward. The technique you used is earth release based. Don't use it against lightning release ninja. That hardness is applied to the body as ninjutsu. Against lightning, it can be broken, and you'll get injured. Jiraiya had fought Iwagakure during the Second Shinobi World War. Their hardening techniques were a problem for those without lightning release, but lightning rendered such defenses dangerous. Yahiko chuckled gratefully. Mu Yue had warned them of that, too. Defensive techniques could give a false confidence if not tempered by caution. After 10 minutes, Jiraiya looked at Nagato and Konan. Who wants to go next? Nagato stepped back. He wasn't shy. He simply knew that if he fought Jiraiya first, Jiraiya might need a rest before guiding Konan. With Nagato's Preta Path and absorption ability, Jiraiya wouldn't easily defeat him, so Nagato yielded. Then I'll go, Konan sighed. Aid, stepping forward. She produced paper from her body, infused it with chakra until it hardened, and threw it, paper shuriken. She'd learned the offensive form of ninja breathing like Yahiko, but she'd skipped the defensive form. Her paper secret technique already offered defensive options. If she trained it deeply enough, she could make herself into paper to evade attacks rather than endure them. Konan dashed in with speed, her taijutsu more offensive than Yahiko's. Jiraiya praised her. Your taijutsu's pretty good, more offensive than Yahiko's. But praise didn't stop him from attacking professionally. They exchanged blows until Konan resorted to throwing 3 shuriken. This time, Jiraiya didn't block with a kunai. He fired a preemptive fire-release shot that hit the incoming shuriken and made them explode. One of Konan's shuriken had been a fake, an explosive tag disguised using her paper secret technique. To most eyes, it looked like a real shuriken, but an experienced ninja like Jiraiya could spot the subtle flaw the instant it left her hand. After another 10 minutes, Konan stepped back, and it was Nagato's turn. Their eyes met, and Jiraiya saw the Rinnegan again, the same pair of eyes that had once shocked him. That sight reinforced Jiraiya's belief that Nagato might very well be the child of prophecy. "Jiraiya-sensei, please be careful," Nagato said respectfully as he stepped forward. The abilities of the Rinnegan could end a fight instantly if opposing information was lacking. "Ha! Let me see how you've grown these past years," Jiraiya replied without dismissing the warning. He wasn't foolish enough to take the Rinnegan lightly. Nagato carried the title of the ninja world's greatest genius and possessed the Six Paths eyes. In combat, the unpredictability alone would make Jiraiya consider summoning Gamabunta if Nagato were his enemy. Those were legendary eyes. Who knew what terrifying techniques they held? 555. Meeting between the three ninjas and the ninja master. Fire release, flame bullet. This time, Jiraiya didn't wait for Nagato to move. He formed his seals, condensed his chakra, and launched the jutsu. Unlike ordinary fire techniques, flame bullet first converts chakra into an oil stored in the mouth. When spit out, a fire release transformation ignites the oil into a high-temperature fireball. Shadow clone technique. Nagato made 2 shadow clones, then his main body stepped forward and opened his Rinnegan to activate an absorption shield. The flaming projectile never even grazed him. The moment the fire touched the shield, it was instantly absorbed, as if it had never existed. "So that's the ninjutsu nullifying ability the reports mentioned," Jiraiya murmured. He couldn't pin down how it worked, but with the Rinnegan involved, it fit his expectations of what such an eye could do. If anyone else used a mystery like this, Jiraiya would call it a secret technique, but Nagato had the Rinnegan. Lightning release, false darkness. One of Nagato's clones formed seals and spat a sharp lightning spear at Jiraiya. Jiraiya, watching the clones closely, dodged immediately. Almighty pull. Using his Rinnegan and keen perception, Nagato followed Jiraiya's movement and reached out, unleashing a powerful gravitational pull. As another clone finished its seals to strike the drawn-in target, Jiraiya did something unexpected. He turned his hair long and hard, anchoring it deep in the ground to resist the pull. Water release, water spear. Seeing that, the clone fired 3 water spears at him. As Almighty Pull ceased, Jiraiya's hair retracted and wrapped around his body, blocking the incoming spears. Ninja art, Needle Jizo. Whoosh! Under Jiraiya's control, his hardened hair shot forth like steel needles toward Nagato and the 2 clones. Too fast to evade, Nagato reacted with the power of his eyes. Shinra Tensei. A fierce, repulsive force erupted, scattering the hair needles. No wonder he earned that reputation from just one match, Jiraiya thought, impressed despite himself. Nagato's abilities weren't something ordinary shinobi could easily overcome. Pretapath could absorb some attacks, Shinra Tensei could repel others, Almighty Pull could force openings. Combine that with his powerful ninjutsu, and he was formidable on both offense and defense. Let's pause here. Nagato, I don't think I can teach you anything more right now, Jiraiya called, breaking off the spar. Nagato was too strong. Continuing might spiral out of control. Jiraiya hadn't come to the Land of Rain to beat up his old students. He'd come to visit them. He was confident he could take Nagato, but there was no satisfaction in defeating one's own disciple. If Nagato ever became someone Jiraiya couldn't best with everything he had, that would be something to be proud of. Nagato nodded and dispelled the shadow clones. Jiraiya-sensei, you didn't expect that, did you? The current Nagato's already strong enough that even you can't easily beat him, Yahiko joked, a cocky edge in his voice. He wanted to ease any awkwardness after their reunion. Yahiko had misread the situation. Nagato was the pupil Jiraiya had long suspected might be the child of prophecy, the kind of person who could carry a destiny like the Six-Path Sage. The more Nagato demonstrated, the more Jiraiya's suspicions seemed justified. Jiraiya, unfazed by embarrassment, laughed. Looks like my lessons weren't wasted, he said, pleased. They stayed on to train. Jiraiya watched as Nagato practiced for an hour and finally found a relative weakness. Nagato's taijutsu, while decent among his peers, lagged far behind his ninjutsu and Rinnegan techniques. Jiraiya immediately focused on improving Nagato's hand-to-hand skills. Jiraiya himself was a well-rounded fighter, ninjutsu, taijutsu, secret arts, and Sage mode, though he lacked in genjutsu and had trained to dispel it instead. That practical approach guided his coaching. Over dinner that evening, Jiraiya asked, "Is Sosuke usually busy? I'd see Ike to meet him." Yahiko and the others had praised Sosuke highly, but Jiraiya preferred to see for himself. Yahiko, Nagato, and the others' reverence made Jiraiya wary. If Sosuke were unscrupulous, they might not notice. For the safety of his pupils, Jiraiya wanted to meet Sosuke in person. As for Sosuke-sensei, he's been fairly free lately. If you want, we can go ask, Yahiko answered after a moment. He didn't promise a guaranteed meeting. Jiraiya's arrival had been arranged through a shinobi sect contact, so Sosuke might already know Jiraiya had come, but not necessarily want to meet him. Yahiko also had the shinobi sect incident, Hanzo's attack and the tangled politics involving Konoha, Iwagakure, and the Rain Village on his mind. Opinions in the shinobi sect had been split. Some blamed Konoha, some blamed Hanzo, some thought it was a Rain Village ploy to clear their name. Sosuke had never publicly backed any particular side. He'd only argued for cooperating with the Rain Village. That left Yahiko uncertain of Sosuke's stance toward Konoha. If Sosuke blamed Konoha and disliked them, Yahiko could understand it. After all, the incident nearly destroyed the shinobi sect. I hope not, Yahiko thought uneasily. He had a special affection for Jiraiya, who'd set him on the path of a shinobi. If they ever stood on opposite sides, Yahiko imagined greeting Jiraiya on the battlefield with a bow, telling Nagato to fight without holding back, and apologizing afterwards, if there was time. For Yahiko, living meant defending the peace the shinobi sect had worked to build. No one, even a beloved teacher, would be allowed to stand in its way. A shinobi sect messenger obtained permission, and the group set out for the sect's headquarters. Night had fallen by the time they arrived. As they made their way to the reception hall, Jiraiya felt a strange chill. "This weather feels off," he commented. Then he sensed eyes on his back and turned. He and Nagato were walking side by side. There were no other shinobi nearby. A strange laugh echoed. Jiraiya instinctively stepped to shield Nagato and the others and began forming hand seals. "It's not a ghost. It's Nagato's nine beast," Yahiko explained. Ghost structure was peculiar. In open wind, it could disperse and would be difficult to manage, so it usually stayed near buildings and didn't follow Nagato when he trained outdoors. "Nagato, your nin beast does look unusual," Jiraiya said, careful and measured. He'd seen odd things in his travels, but Ghost's morbid, transient form was unique. "Kojia." Ghost floated behind Nagato and responded to Jiraiya with a cry. It was indeed the most peculiar nin beast in the world. They entered the reception hall and found Sosuke, also called Mu Yue, already seated and waiting. Yahiko, Nagato, and the others greeted him with immediate respect. Mu Yue nodded politely, then looked at Jiraiya with interest. "Hearing about you is nothing compared to meeting you. A ninja master like you, your presence is extraordinary," Jiraiya said with a chuckle. Mu Yue's face had a faint resemblance to Aizen's. His white robe and teacherly air made him come across as a calm, reasoning type. "The feeling is mutual. The name of the Sannin thunders across the land. Today I'm glad to meet you," Mu Yue replied gently. Jiraiya's question turned to Mu Yue's central pursuit. "The shinobi sect's ambition is peace. What do you think will happen to this chaotic shinobi world? Can peace be restored?" He watched Mu Yue's face closely. Sosuke was known as someone who sought peace. Jiraiya wanted to see the thinking behind it. "That depends on what you mean by peace," Mu Yue said. "Complete peace or relative peace, eternal peace or peace for a period. If a major power could produce a ninja god like Hashirama, the war might end quickly. There'd be peace as long as that strong person lived," Mu Yue continued. "If not, the greatest wars should peak and subside in about 3 years, leading into a period of relative peace. Over the next decade, you'd see localized conflicts, but no single war affecting the entire shinobi world." He explained that as wars progressed, major villages gathered more intelligence, probing and counter-probing, until clashes of 1,000 shinobi became common, and at the worst times, clashes could involve many thousands. Even a 10,000-strong force would be devastating. A chuunin-level shinobi was far beyond ordinary people in speed and strength. High-level individuals, even Kage, might be involved, and in that chaos even Mu Yue would have to be cautious. Someone was watching him, and more importantly, his disciples. "Isn't that just like before?" Yahiko asked, puzzled. "Fight a big war, then rest for a decade, sprinkle smaller conflicts in between." "It has been like that since the village era," Jiraiya sighed. Mu Yue's analysis was accurate. History likely repeated itself in similar patterns. You think the Six-Path Sage's reincarnation is the answer? Yahiko asked. Wouldn't that bring lasting peace? The Six-Path Sage's return wouldn't fix everything, Mu Yue said. The peace of the Sage's era resembled the peace under Hashirama, only the Sage was stronger. After Hashirama's death came the First Shinobi World War. After the Sage's death, the sect split and chaos returned. In effect, resurrecting Hashirama and Tobirama together would not be much different from resurrecting the Sage. Jiraiya listened, surprised. As a member of the Shinobi sect's contemporary leadership, Mu Yue didn't deify the Six-Path Sage. Jiraiya suspected Mu Yue had found authentic Shinobi sect records, true Ninshu heritage, rather than mere legend. I don't know how to secure long-term peace, Mu Yue admitted. We work to find answers. We cultivate the next generation. Even if we don't find the solution in our lifetime, we can hand the search to our descendants. He added, wryly, that the ultimate method would sound almost chuunin. For an exceptionally wise and capable person to ascend to godhood, an Otsutsuki-level existence or beyond. Such an entity, left unchallenged, could impose peace for a long time. Jiraiya felt a connection. Mu Yue's approach reminded him of himself, traveling the shinobi world and taking on disciples who thought the same way. He left the meeting with a sense of relief. Nagato and his friends were in good hands. Following Sosuke was not a bad fate, it was a fortunate one. Konoha, South Border Forest. Obito arrived early at his usual training spot and waited for Mu Yue. Today was special. Mu Yue had promised to teach him and Shisui a powerful new fire release. Blue flame, will it burn space itself, leaving no escape? Obito daydreamed. If it were that strong, fire release would rise to the top echelon. Still not awake? Kakashi asked, watching Obito stare and smile like an idiot. You're the one who's not awake, Obito fired back and then smiled. Kakashi ignored him and began training with Rockruff. Rockruff was a key combat asset for Kakashi. Training with it improved his overall strength. If I learn the new fire release, I'll trounce you in front of Rin, Obito promised. He had already overtaken Kakashi in the martial arts tournament rankings. Learning a top-level technique and decisively beating Kakashi in a friendly match would cement his dominance. Such youthful ambition, Metkai said, arriving for rehabilitation training and greeting the young ninja enthusiastically. Riolu, I'm sorry we can't train until exhaustion today, but I'll cheer you on. Riolu responded energetically, fired up by Guy's encouragement. Obito calculated the power of each peer in his head. Charizard's evolution advantage, Shisui's still unadvanced Pokemon, and Metguy's raw strength. The timing of internal battles, now twice a year, bothered him. In half a year, evolutions and improvements might erase any edge he had. When Mu Yue appeared, Obito rushed forward, joined by the others. Mu Yue smiled and greeted everyone. Obito, Shisui, come here, he called, then created shadow clones to guide the group's training. Blue Flame was difficult to learn. Direct-in straining, action, and senior guidance were essential. The fire release I'm teaching today is called Blue Flame, also known as Azure Flame, Mu Yue explained simply. Obito listened with rapt attention. He had never been more earnest. He'd been frustrated by Golden Skyline for too long. With Kakashi mastering one thought cut, Obito desperately wanted a technique of comparable caliber. End of chapter. 556. Teaching Blue Flame, Riolu Evolution. After a brief explanation, Mu Yue began the demonstration. Chakra condensed on his palm, and a blue flame blinked into being above his hand. As the flame swelled to the size of a fist, Shisui and Obito could feel the heat radiating from it. This flame, the temperature is insane, Shisui thought, wiping sweat from his brow. Though the blue flame was only about the size of a fist, the energy it contained was astonishing. What a cool flame! Obito couldn't hide his excitement. Normal fire release techniques were red. The blue color alone told him this was something different. Mu Yue tossed the blue flame onto a nearby rock. To both Obito and Shisui's surprise, the stone rapidly melted into lava while the blue flame continued to burn and spread. The compressed blue flame reaches extremely high temperatures. It can melt metal and rock easily, Mu Yue explained, then called Yamato over. Yamato, try extinguishing it with full power water release. Yamato nodded, formed hand seals, and gathered his chakra. Obito's heart jumped. Could this be a flame even water release couldn't put out? If so, his teacher wouldn't be able to bind him anymore. He had misunderstood fire release all along. It wasn't weak, he just hadn't seen true power yet. Fire release is the best, Obito thought, already converted. Water release, great waterfall technique, Yamato shouted, unleashing a broad torrent meant to smother the blaze. A huge ball of water slammed into the blue flame. Hissing, a massive amount of water evaporated into a mist that quickly dispersed. Teacher Mu Yue, is this flame unextinguishable? Obito asked, watching the blue flame still burning fiercely. If it truly couldn't be put out, it would be a guaranteed lethal technique. It's not truly unextinguishable, Mu Yue replied, and then demonstrated a water release himself to douse the flame. But most water release users in the ninja world don't have the strength to extinguish it. Obito felt a touch of disappointment. He had hoped for something completely immune to water. Could Hanzo put it out? He asked. He'd never met Hanzo, but Obito dreamed of defeating him, partly to show off to Jiraiya, who a younger version had once lost to Hanzo, and partly to earn a cool reputation. Probably not, Mu Yue said. Obito's eyes brightened. At least against Hanzo, the blue flame would be effectively unquenchable. Shisui quietly agreed. Hanzo was a legendary water release user. If even he likely couldn't put it out, perhaps only the third Mizukage, or a handful of hidden powerhouses could. Including Mu Yue himself, Shisui thought 3 people who could extinguish it might even be generous. There's more than one way to use it, Mu Yue continued. Besides compressing the flame to raise its temperature and burning power, the blue flame can be released like ordinary fire release. He inhaled, gathered chakra in his throat, and spat out a pillar of blue fire. Everything it passed was incinerated. If you master control over the blue flame, you can manipulate its shape and form. Fire release, blue flame, great fireball technique. Mu Yue formed the tiger seal and expelled a huge wave of blue flame, shaping it into a massive fireball. The impact cratered the ground with a blast far stronger than a typical great fireball technique. When the smoke cleared, Obito and Shisui saw a deep pit where flat ground had been, and blackened ash all around. So the control is flexible. You can strengthen it by shaping it differently, Shisui thought. The technique wasn't a fusion of different jutsu. It was using the blue flame as the base and releasing it through familiar fire release methods. This means all the fire release I learned before can be upgraded. Obito's excitement grew. Learning the blue flame would improve his other fire release techniques from the ground up. The commotion had drawn the attention of other disciples and their Pokemon. Blue flames, Kakashi noted immediately. Charizard uttered a worried cry. If Obito learned such a power, would training with him become dangerous? Determined not to be outclassed, Charizard stepped up its own training. Mu Yue switched his breathing to flame breathing and entered flame breathing chakra mode. Fire release, blue flame, flame fist. He gathered chakra on his palm, compressed it, performed nature transformation, and launched a fist wrapped in blue flame. The impact left another black pit in the earth. Fire release, blue flame, blazing impact. Mu Yue then flooded his body with chakra and released the blue flame in a rush that engulfed him, making him appear as a man of fire. Obito's eyes widened. This was far cooler than any ordinary blazing impact. Mu Yue's show only increased Obito's resolve to master the blue flame. It was powerful and stylish in equal measure. First, I have to say, with your current fire release nature transformation level, you aren't quite ready to learn the blue flame, Mu Yue warned. As a Tier 1 God-level exclusive skill, the localized blue flame had tremendous power but high requirements. Obito fell silent, listening. Mu Yue hadn't finished. There was a catch. Luckily, you've already mastered flame-breathing chakra mode. That mode enhances your nature transformation enough that you can barely meet the requirements. But it will mean you'll need to rely on flame breathing often in your studies. It's going to be grueling. You must be prepared. Learning theory could be done by listening, but ninjutsu demanded long practice and experimentation. The breathing technique chakra modes were currently the disciples' trump cards, but they consumed vast amounts of chakra and stamina in regular training. Calling it hard work would be an understatement. Teacher Mu Yue, I can take it. Are there other fire release techniques at this level? I can handle a bit more hardship, Obito chuckled. He believed that no punishment or exhaustion was too much if it meant surpassing Kakashi and winning Rin Nohara's admiration. Slap! Mu Yue tapped Obito's head with his index and middle fingers. "Talk about that after you can use the blue flame skillfully," he said. Mu Yue himself didn't even have a blue flame technique that's strong yet. The key to the blue flame is concentration of fire release chakra and nature transformation. Mu Yue officially began instructing. As he lectured, both Shisui and Obito received his enlightenment buff. Mu Yue timed his enlightenments carefully. The buff had a 1-week cooldown and lasted 2 days, so he used it only when new techniques were introduced or at the optimal moment to maximize learning. "Don't keep questions to yourselves. Ask them," Mu Yue said during a break. He could also clarify doubts. With teaching, enlightenment, and clarification stacked together, it made learning more efficient. Even so, the blue flame's inherent difficulty made progress slow. By the end of the afternoon, Obito's proficiency had crept up to barely 1 point. Shisui had reached 1 point earlier in the session, but he still hadn't broken to 2. Mastering something as powerful as the blue flame would be a long-term struggle. "So hard. Truly worthy of the strongest fire release," Obito said, undeterred. The difficulty only increased his anticipation of how strong he'd become once he mastered it. To him, the blue flame had already surpassed the fire dragon dance and become the ultimate fire release. Taking a long breath, Obito looked around. Kakashi was still running and practicing combined attacks with Rockruff. Yamato was training his breathing technique diligently. Rin Nohara worked water release with Melodic, and Metkai was wiping the sweat from a panting Riolu. "Another productive day, huh? Once my injuries heal, we can train hard together," Metkai encouraged. His injuries limited his participation for now, but he still supported Riolu, wiping its sweat, offering water, and cheering it on. Riolu relaxed and smiled. Training with Metkai was tough, but it made it happy. Suddenly, a dazzling white light burst from Riolu's body. The flash drew everyone's attention. "Guy's nin, beast evolved too," Obito said, curiosity piqued. He wondered what the evolved form would look like, an almost complete metamorphosis like Melodic, or a development that kept some features like Rockruff? Kakashi was equally interested. While he didn't know why exactly, every Pokemon's evolution so far had unlocked new ninjutsu and taijutsu. Melodic had gone from none to mastering numerous water release and even medical ninjutsu. Charizard and Rockruff hadn't changed as drastically, but their improvements were still obvious. Kakashi glanced at Shisui's Zorua. He'd been eager for Zorua's evolution, since its genjutsu could be devastating if its power grew enough. For some reason, Zorua had hatched early but not evolved yet. Now Riolu had evolved, leaving only Zorua unreached. Noticing Kakashi's stare, Zorua puffed up proudly. Shisui tapped the tuft of raised fur on Zorua's head. "Why so proud?" When the white light faded, the majestic Lucario stood in everyone's view. Compared to Riolu's cuteness, Lucario was cool and handsome. The round bumps on Riolu's back had elongated into sharp bone spikes, and a small spike had formed on its chest. The changes were more growth than transformation. Many Riolu features remained. "It's not a huge change," Obito observed. Compared to other evolutions, Lucario's transformation looked more like maturity. It had simply grown up. Kakashi nodded. Rockruff's evolution had changed its fur dramatically. Riolu's evolution was subtler, preserving color schemes and core traits. "It got strong all of a sudden," Metkai said happily, giving Lucario a thumbs up. He felt thrilled for the new Lucario and would have tested it in combat if not for his injuries. Lucario mimicked the gesture, feeling proud and powerful. After evolving, it not only learned many new skills, but also significantly increased its aura. "Want to test your strength? Have a match with Rockruff?" Kakashi suggested, looking at Metkai and Lucario. Chapter 557, Power of Wave. Guy studied Lucario for a moment. Given his nature, he would normally jump at any chance to test new strength through battle, but this was different. They were in a contractor relationship, and Guy respected Lucario's choice. He nodded and let the Pokemon decide. Lucario stared at Rockruff with fierce resolve. The narrow loss it had suffered as Riolu still burned in its memory. Now evolved and stronger, it wanted to avenge that defeat and win for Metkai. Kakashi and the others couldn't understand the Pokemon's language, but they could tell from its posture and eyes that Lucario had accepted the challenge. "Go for it. Your body, forged by training day and night, will respond, Metkai encouraged. He was clearly proud. Lucario's tireless spirit reminded him of his younger self. Kakashi gave Rockruff a final pat on the head. You haven't forgotten how to fight when you don't have full information, have you? He asked. Though nin beasts usually fought alongside their contractors, Kakashi had drilled combat tactics into Rockruff for exactly these sorts of unpredictable situations. Awoo! Rockruff howled confidently. It had defeated Riolu once before. Now trained meticulously by Kakashi, it was sure it could beat Lucario. After a brief exchange with their contractors, Rockruff and Lucario moved to a nearby open space and waited. Shisui, who do you think will win? Obito asked casually. Shisui considered. It's hard to say. We know Rockruff's capabilities, but Guy's 9 Beast just evolved. Evolution was a wild card. No one would have predicted that a Phoebas with no combat ability could become a melodic with the strength of an elite Jonin. Even though Rockruff had beaten Riolu, Lucario's evolution could have brought unknown improvements and new abilities. Obito murmured, I think Rockruff will probably lose. Because it headbutted you before? Shisui teased, catching the personal bias in Obito's remark. Obito glared. They were of the same clan. Shouldn't they be united against the white-haired faction? Why expose weaknesses now? He accused Shisui lightheartedly, and Zorua, sitting nearby, shot back with a scornful glare. For a moment, human and fox locked eyes in a silent contest, neither giving way. Judging from past fights, Rockruff does have a real chance of losing, Shisui said after a pause. Rockruff's earlier victory over Riolu had been narrow. It hadn't matched Riolu head-on, but had won through strategy and persistence. Now Lucario had richer experience. If Rockruff still couldn't face it squarely, the match would be difficult. Obito shrugged in agreement. It's all based on prior performance. He conceded. Battle start, Kakashi called, acting as referee. Everyone focused as the two nin beasts prepared. Rockruff sank its claws into the earth, channeling earth-released chakra nature transformation. Sand attack. It raked the ground and sent sheets of sand flying at Lucario. The move had no killing power, but eyes are vulnerable, and blinding an opponent could be decisive. Lucario was ready. It condensed a large amount of chakra into its paws. Vacuum wave. A shockwave surged forward, slicing through the airborne sand and charging on toward Rockruff with full force. Having been troubled by sand in the past, Lucario wasn't going to be caught off guard again. The wave struck Rockruff before it could react properly, blasting it back into a tree. Rockruff gritted its teeth, drew chakra into its limbs, and launched itself forward. Quick attack! It flashed in, narrowly avoiding Lucario's follow-up punch. The tree that took the hit from Lucario's blow shattered in an explosive crash. Kakashi watched with interest. Impressive taijutsu, he muttered. Rockruff had been at a disadvantage because it had opened the fight blind. If it had known about Vacuum Wave, it wouldn't have started with Sand Attack. Rockruff then condensed chakra and summoned 3 large stones around itself. If its opponent had been anyone else, Rockruff might have used clones to confuse and probe, for openings. But Lucario possessed a sensory ability Rockruff didn't understand. There was no choice but to compete on raw power. Rock throw. It sent the stones flying. Lucario charged forward, smashing each falling rock with punches. After shattering several, it concentrated its aura between its paws until a radiant blue orb formed. Rockruff sensed something dangerous and kept throwing rocks to disrupt Lucario, but the opponent moved around them. Aura Sphere! Lucario hurled the orb, locking on with aura power. Rockruff slammed its claws into the earth, rising an earthen wall. Earth Release, Earth Flow Wall. The aura sphere dented the wall, but kept coming. Rockruff braced itself and then launched a quick dash, aiming to use its speed to gain an angle. Its whole tactic was long-range attrition, earth-release defense, and superior speed for evasion. But the aura sphere curved in midair instead of hitting the ground, and Rockruff realized too late that Lucario had adjusted its aim. Lucario pounded forward alongside the sphere. Boom! The aura sphere struck true, and the impact sent Rockruff sprawling, consciousness slipping as its eyes turned into spirals. Lucario wins, Kakashi announced when Rockruff collapsed, stunned and unable to continue. Kakashi found the result both reasonable and surprising. It was surprising because Rockruff had barely landed any meaningful blows. Yet it was reasonable once he reviewed the fight. Vacuum Wave and Aura Sphere had been decisive. Rockruff's misjudgments, born of incomplete information, had cost it the match. Kakashi mused aloud, to change direction so dramatically, maybe it can only be stopped by defensive ninjutsu or countered by offensive ninjutsu. The Aura Sphere Lucario used to finish the fight was not simple. It was flexible as well as powerful. Obito tried to act nonchalant. "See, I told you it wouldn't work," he said, pretending he'd predicted the outcome. In truth, he had been surprised. He had faith in Rockruff because it had once beaten a Charmeleon in its unevolved form. Still, since he'd guessed correctly, he couldn't resist a little show. Watching Lucario's display, Obito's mind wandered to the rankings among the disciples. Might Guy's combination of the 8 gates and rock-breathing chakra mode had put him far ahead. Even after learning Blue Flame, Obito still felt intimidated. The title of strongest disciple felt distant and hard-won. Lucario turned and pointed at Charizard, clearly indicating it wanted another match. It seemed to sense Obito's wish to see Guy's position defended. With Guy injured, Lucario would step up to face the other side's Nin Beast. It hadn't used much energy in the previous match and was ready to continue. Charizard cocked its head and scratched its neck, puzzled at the sudden challenge. It wasn't thrilled to face Lucario. That new aura user had just been fierce. Still, Zorua egged it on. "Come on, you evolved twice. What are you afraid of?" Puffed with pride at its evolutionary history, Charizard accepted. It glanced at Melodic and found curiosity in the graceful Pokemon's eyes. That glance lit a fire within Charizard. Perform well now, and Melodic might regard it with newfound respect. Obito's feelings were mixed. Part of him wanted Lucario to teach Charizard a lesson, but another part dreaded the embarrassment if his own Nine Beast lost. Since Lucario had just fought, Kakashi let it rest a while for fairness. Kakashi thought quietly that Charizard might not be vulnerable in the same way Rockruff had been. The decisive factor in Rockruff's loss had been chakra countering, and Charizard might not be susceptible to that. When the rest period ended, Lucario opened its eyes and calmly stepped back into the arena. Charizard advanced under the encouragement of the others. Rockruff's awakened cry of, "Well done," and Zorua's bark of, "Be spirited, don't lose face," buoyed its pride and resolve. The match was about to begin. 558. The speculation that Zoroark has not evolved. Listening to its friends, Charizard snorted 2 streams of white smoke from its nostrils, puffed out its chest, and strode toward the battle arena. "Battle start," Kakashi called. At his cue, Charizard and Lucario quickly gathered chakra and launched into their respective techniques. Charizard beat its wings hard to take to the air while channeling chakra into its mouth to release a thick, black-gray smokescreen. From watching the earlier fight, Charizard knew Lucario favored close-range body techniques. Flight would largely negate those. The smokescreen would also obscure visual targeting and make it hard for Lucario to locate it for ranged attacks. Kakashi watched and shook his head. It seems Obito and Charizard still don't realize it has sensory abilities. It wasn't that there weren't ninjutsu that could interfere with sensory powers, the hidden mist technique, for example, but Charizard's smokescreen was nothing like that. Still, it made sense. Charizard had never fought Lucario before, and Lucario's training focused on physical conditioning like Might Guy's students, so its sensory side was easy to miss. If Kakashi hadn't paid close attention to Rockruff's shadow clone and watched the prior fight carefully, he might have missed it too. Having lost sight of its opponent, Lucario closed its eyes and tuned into aura. It gathered an aura sphere in its paw while sensing Charizard's presence. Reading Charizard's offensive intent, Lucario dodged a fire blast and fired the aura sphere upward. Boom! The blue sphere struck Charizard, making its flight waver. With the smokescreen gone, Charizard's slightly ruffled form was exposed. A woo? Charizard was surprised, both by being hit and by the power of the aura sphere. It had seen Rockruff knocked out by one and thought it was terrifying, but this only caused moderate pain. "Seems I'm really strong." Charizard swelled with confidence. It figured it could take 2 more of those and still stand, roughly speaking, enough to beat 3 Rockruff. It circled Lucario, wings beating, searching for an opening. Lucario stayed calm and gathered another aura sphere. If one wasn't enough, there could be more. Scheherazade opened its mouth and answered the charging blue energy with fire, blasting the aura sphere apart in a deep, roaring conflagration. The blast swallowed the energy ball. The column of flames scattered into the air. "Awo!" Scheherazade roared, certain that offense was the best defense. Scheherazade followed up by gathering a large amount of chakra into its sharp claws and slinging several wind blades at Lucario. The blades came fast and covered multiple angles as Scheherazade circled, trying to box Lucario in. Lucario's expression never changed. It extended its claws, then a metallic sheen appeared on them. With a swing of Metal Claw, it shattered the wind blades. A hot current accompanied by flames followed, Heat Wave. This time, Lucario couldn't entirely avoid it. A patch of its chest fur was singed black. Heat Wave's range was broader than Scheherazade's earlier moves, and Lucario had only partially evaded. Scheherazade seized the chance to spew another thick stream of fire. Seeing this, Lucario dug deep and prepared to dodge at full strength. Scheherazade grew arrogant. Rockruff had been easily taken out by Lucario. Now Scheherazade had Lucario on the defensive. In Scheherazade's mind, the hierarchy was clear. Scheherazade, Lucario, Rockruff. With Obito at its side, and even if it were a bit slow, Scheherazade believed it couldn't be defeated. It wanted to finish the fight decisively, like Lucario had with Rockruff. To make its attack more certain, Scheherazade lowered its altitude, closer range, more reliable hits. It gathered chakra in its throat and unleashed a thicker column of fire. Lucario's eyes, however, lit up. It had been waiting for this. Clenching a fist, it formed two bone-shaped chakra rods by gathering earth release chakra. The fire rushed toward the trees where Lucario had been fighting. Lucario leapt back onto a tree. Scheherazade's continuous flames swept past the trunks. Then, crash, Lucario shoved off the tree with its whole body and sprang. Scheherazade panicked and could not climb high enough to be safe from a single strike. It tried to dodge sideways. Scheherazade didn't expect the leap was a feint. Lucario sprang to another tree and then launched itself up again, swinging the bone rod down with force. The impact sent a shock through Scheherazade's body. Suddenly it understood why Rockruff had gone down in 2 hits. Scheherazade's flight failed. It plummeted to the ground, landing hard. Its tail flame flared wildly. Scheherazade spat flames in a panic to keep Lucario from following up. If Lucario had been rash, maybe Scheherazade's desperate counter would have worked. But Lucario remained composed. Sensing Scheherazade's intention with aura, it gathered another aura sphere. The moment Scheherazade's flames ceased and it took to the air, the blue energy ball struck again. Boom! Scheherazade fell and then lay dazed, eyes spinning. Phew! Lucario breathed out. Defeating Scheherazade had been far tougher than Rockruff. If Scheherazade hadn't lowered its flight, Lucario would have had great difficulty dealing heavy damage. Its best close-range option was Bone Rush, and that couldn't hit a sufficiently high-flying opponent. Lucario wins! Kakashi announced as Scheherazade failed to rise. The match confirmed some of his previous theories. Chakra restraints between Pokémon significantly affected outcomes. From raw strength, Scheherazade and Rockruff were roughly similar, but in practice, Rockruff had been dominated by Lucario, while Scheherazade had even pressured Lucario, only losing because it made a tactical mistake. Obito watched regretfully. It did its best. Even in defeat, it hurt the opponent a lot. Rockruff scowled at the praise, clearly annoyed it was being talked about and looked at. The displeasure brought a small pang of satisfaction to Obito. Complimenting his own rough dragon grated his conscience, but if it upset the white-haired faction, it was worth it. Another victory. Didn't I tell you? A body trained day and night will repay you. Metkai laughed, proud of his nin beast. Lucario had now fought 3 matches against other nin beasts. 2 wins, 1 loss. A 66% win rate, very strong compared to Metkai's early years at the ninja school, when his win rate was almost non-existent against geniuses like Kakashi. Lucario smiled at Metkai, then glanced at Melodic with an urge to challenge it. If Metkai was the strongest disciple, then Lucario, contracted to him, should be the strongest nin beast. But Lucario suppressed the impulse. The match had drained it and left minor wounds. It needed time to rest and recover. It was already dusk and training was ending. Lucario didn't want to waste others' time. Although it seems fine, let's still give it some treatment. Rin Nohara created a shadow clone. Her main body would tend to Scheherazade, while the clone treated Lucario. Melodic moved to Rin's side and began to gather chakra to assist. Lucario shook its head and performed nature transformation on its gathered chakra. Life Dew, a blue-green water sphere formed above it, burst, and droplets of revitalizing water fell on both Lucario and Scheherazade. Lucario's minor injuries healed quickly. Melodic was surprised. It hadn't expected the apparently battle-hardened Lucario to know a healing technique like its own. Rin's treatment combined with Lucario's Life Dew soon revived Scheherazade. Feeling the cool relief spread through its body and spotting Melodic nearby, Scheherazade cried out emotionally. "Awoo! The goddess, your medical ninjutsu is amazing. I feel completely healed," Zorua translated precisely. Everyone paused at the scene. Obito covered his mouth to keep from laughing. If it hadn't been his nin beast, he'd have been rolling. Melodic broke the silence with a single note. The Life Dew just now was cast by Lucario. Zorua couldn't help but laugh as it translated. Normally professional, it couldn't suppress the humor this time. Scheherazade froze, looked from Melodic to Lucario. D then collapsed again, apparently too exhausted from the fight to stay awake. No one pushed to wake it. They all tacitly assumed it was simply out of commission after taking that bone rod to the body. Lucario can do medical ninjutsu too. That means Guy won't have to rely on us for healing if he trains separately, Kakashi observed. He'd been a bit worried about Might Guy. The 8 gates granted enormous power, but even the strongest bodies only reduced damage, not remove it, so injuries and sequelae were common. Life Dew was a high-level medical ninjutsu. Having Lucario use it was reassuring. On the way back, Zorua hummed a little tune, evidently in a very good mood. Shisui watched the cheerful fox and thought about how the other disciples' nin beasts had already evolved and how Zorua had complained about evolution before. He had a guess about why Zorua might not have evolved, but even if he were right, he wasn't about to force the issue. Let it be, Shisui smiled helplessly. Even a correct guess didn't mean he'd make Zorua change. 559. Backup hidden chakra completed that night at Tsunade's house. Mu Yue and Tsunade were in the study, running a final check through all the development data for the Yang Seal. With Lady Tsunade, the ninja world's top medical nin, assisting him, and with his own relentless practice of the sealing technique, Mu Yue was finally closing in on his power bank plan. He was one final step away from his envisioned Yang Seal, modifying and perfecting the existing seal inside his body. The theoretical framework was essentially complete. "I'm exhausted. It's finally done," Tsunade flopped into her chair, looking ragged. "But it was worth it, right? Not only is my yin seal perfected, but you've finished developing metotic regeneration," Mu Yue said with a chuckle, taking a sip of tea. Tsunade had helped Mu Yue refine his Yang Seal, and Mu Yue had helped Tsunade complete the complementary ninjutsu for the Yin Seal. Without mitotic regeneration, the Yin Seal was practically useless. Tsunade rolled her eyes and grumbled, "You make it sound like mutual benefit. I wasn't that desperate to perfect the Yin Seal." Tsunade had researched the Yin Seal and mitotic regeneration more out of curiosity than necessity. She didn't plan to go back into battle and had no real need to increase her own combat power. If not for some other useful applications of mitotic regeneration, she wouldn't have bothered. "You absolutely must make tonight's supper extra lavish, at least 10 times richer than a normal meal," she said with a serious face. In a way, it felt like a farewell feast. Tsunade wanted to eat her fill. It wasn't that she planned to leave Konoha, the war was still on, but she sensed their interactions would decrease from now on. Mu Yue had come to her house specifically to learn from her for the Yang Seal. Now that the development was finished, he wouldn't need her as much. She doubted he'd drop by to cook with her as often anymore. "All right, once I finish the last step, I'll prepare a supper that will definitely satisfy you," Mu Yue nodded. He knew how much Tsunade had helped him. Without her guidance, he might have spent years more on this. So whether she demanded a lavish feast or a Manchu Han imperial banquet, he'd oblige. The Yang Seal mattered too much to him to skimp on a thank-you meal. "You promised. Don't be surprised if I make more demands if it's not good enough," Tsunade said, eyes bright. "Fine, I promised." "Then hurry and do the final step," she urged impatiently. Mu Yue didn't need the push. He was already preparing. This new ninjutsu had been on his mind since shortly after his transmigration, and now that it was about to be finished, he wasn't as calm as he looked. The yang seal wouldn't raise his absolute limit, but it would significantly increase his stamina, an enormous advantage. Who? Mu Yue closed his eyes, adjusted his breathing, and focused until he entered transparent world. The next operation demanded extreme precision. A mistake could cause internal injury and potentially damage his chakra circulatory system. That was another reason he wanted Tsunade nearby. If anything went wrong, the world's best healer would be there to save him. The Yang seal in its incomplete form was like the Yin seal without mitotic regeneration, not entirely useless, but only situationally helpful. For most ninja it would be negligible. For Mu Yue, though, the partial Yang seal had already allowed a useful breakthrough. He could apply it to Shadow Clone, constantly bleeding a small amount of chakra into a clone to maintain it and solve the duration problem, which helped his multitasking. The perfected Yang seal would be the Yang side equivalent of the Yin seal's mitotic regeneration. But the effects would differ. The Yin seal provided automatic healing and a strength boost, while the Yang seal would be bound to a specific breathing technique chakra mode. In practice, it would function as an additional chakra pool, usable only within that breathing mode. Flame breathing, for now. Fire release is still the strongest, Mu Yue decided. Different breathing techniques varied greatly. This first Yang seal would support only one breathing technique chakra mode. It wasn't a major limitation. If he needed another mode in a fight, he could just turn the Yang seal off. This wasn't like opening the gate of death. It could be closed. Once Mu Yue felt ready, he refined chakra and poured it into the Yang seal. When enough had accumulated, he stopped, opened his eyes, and a flame-shaped mark slowly appeared on his forehead. It worked? Tsunade asked, watching him closely. She didn't share his sensory abilities, so she had to rely on experience to judge success. It should have, Mu Yue replied, testing the seal. Previously, the Yang seal in his body could store and release chakra, but releasing it carried risk. Too much could cause chakra confusion. Now, when he tried to use the chakra within the Yang seal, it remained perfectly still unless he entered his breathing technique chakra mode. That was the key improvement. Yang seal release now essentially equated to entering the breathing technique chakra mode. Outside of that mode, the chakra stayed stored and stable. Let me check, Tsunade said, rising and touching the chakra points related to the Yang seal. It's perfect. Even Tsunade admitted that she couldn't have done this operation inside someone's body as precisely as Mu Yue had. Once I've accumulated enough chakra, I'll enter flame breathing to test it. If it's stable, I'll teach it to Kakashi, Mu Yue thought. He wanted his disciples to learn this technique. They were heavy chakra users whose potential was limited by age and physical condition. Other than Metkai, who had the 8 gates, all his students who could learn the Yang seal would see major improvements. But the revised Yang seal demanded extremely high internal chakra precision. Learning it recklessly would be self-harm. That was why both Tsunade and Jiraiya had warned him not to waste time on it. Only Kakashi, who also possessed Transparent World, seemed likely to master it. For the rest, Mu Yue would wait until they developed comparable precision, or until he simplified the Yang seal. Since it's done, hurry up and prepare supper, Tsunade said, patting his shoulder. She was already thinking about food. If you're starving, I can send a shadow clone back to get some pastries while I finish the main meal, Mu Yue offered. His cooking wasn't uniformly perfect. Some dishes needed more effort. Since Tsunade had helped him so much, he planned to put his full care into the feast. Tsunade nearly agreed, but then decided pastries now would spoil her appetite for the grand dinner. Go get them, she told him. She could save some for later or give them to Shizune. Mu Yue formed a seal, created a shadow clone, and sent it to his home in the main district where he'd prepared ingredients. The clone slipped into the kitchen and began processing them skillfully. The sounds of cooking drifted back to Tsunade's house and reached Shizune, who was reading nearby. Teacher Mu Yue, let me help, Shizune said, coming into the kitchen. She wasn't the type to freeload. No need. I can handle it, Mu Yue replied politely. Shizune hesitated, then accepted his firmness and returned to the living room. Seeing Tsunade sprawled on the sofa while Mu Yue cooked, Shizune couldn't help but feel annoyed and a little helpless. This house belonged to Tsunade. not to Mu Yue. Yet here he was doing the work while Tsunade relaxed. Lady Tsunade, honestly, why are you making teacher Mu Yue cook so late? Shizune complained. She pictured Tsunade as the one who insisted and Mu Yue as the reluctant servant, and she felt sorry for him. Though Tsunade had been kind to her, Mu Yue had also taught her a lot, so Shizune sided with him. If I wanted to eat, I could make it myself, Tsunade protested, then reached out and squashed Shizune's cheeks. It's your fault, Shizune. If your cooking were as good as Mu Yue's, would I even ask him to cook? Shizune was speechless. Her cooking simply wasn't on Mu Yue's level. If Tsunade had used a grep Nyon else as an example, Shizune might have reflected, but Mu Yue's culinary skill was a mountain she couldn't climb. But it's fine. I'm magnanimous. I'll forgive you, Tsunade said generously. Shizune took out her medical books and sat next to Tsunade to study. She lacked Tsunade's natural talent, so she had to work harder to absorb her teachings. In perseverance and willpower, Shizune could outwork many in Konoha. She'd followed Tsunade from the beginning of her slump and never slackened. Not long after, the shadow clone returned with pastries. Tsunade smiled and handed them to Shizune. Your favorite, Mu Yue's secret pastries. Don't eat them all. Leave at least half for me. Shizune looked surprised. In the past, Tsunade often dug in first, forgetting her. Today felt different. She reached out and touched Tsunade's forehead, puzzled. It's not hot either. Tsunade looked cross. So that's how you see me, Shizune, she muttered, arms crossed. Shizune, realizing she'd been unfair, apologized sincerely. Then she walked behind the sofa and gave Tsunade a shoulder rub. Only then did Tsunade's expression soften. Shizune, chastened, ate Mu Yue's pastries with a blissful look. She didn't overindulge. Out of guilt, she ate only a third and planned to save the rest for Tsunade. All the dishes are ready, Mu Yue announced. He brought plate after plate, elegant dishes from his previous life, visually appealing and flavorful, plus local ninja world specialties. The table barely had room for everything. Tsunade gave him a thumbs up, washed her hands quickly, and began eating with gusto. Shizune likewise abandoned all restraint and ate with immersive relish. When she finally couldn't eat another bite, she put down her chopsticks and glared at Tsunade in mock accusation. You're despicable, she said. Tsunade sighed inwardly and kept eating. She didn't know when she'd have Mu Yue's cooking again. Maybe she should freeload more often. 560. Yang Seal passed down. Zoroark evolves. It was early morning. Mu Yue made himself a simple breakfast and then headed to the south border forest to teach his disciples. In truth, he was past the point of teaching them every single detail. At their level, students needed to study and practice on their own. Still, whenever there were important new techniques, Mu Yue kept a focused curriculum to make sure everyone mastered them quickly. That morning, his main body concentrated on Shisui and Obito with blue flame training, while his shadow clones supervised the others. He had completed the Yang Seal last night, so whenever he had a spare moment, Mu Yue refined chakra and stored it in the seal. He'd stayed up preparing a late-night meal for Tsunade and gone to sleep soon after, so there wasn't much chakra in the seal yet. During the midday break, Mu Yue slipped alone into the deeper part of the forest to test the Yang Seal's effects. The theory said it worked, but he wouldn't teach an untested ninjutsu to his students. He had to use it himself and make sure there were no surprises. He stopped at a distance far enough not to disturb the others, focused his breathing to the limit, and opened the Yang Seal. Yang Seal release. Chakra poured from the seal. A red glow flared from the flame mark on his forehead, and fiery red patterns spread like living embers. Yang Seal, flame breathing. Mu Yue's presence surged as he entered the flame-breathing chakra mode. He casually condensed a fire release, great fireball technique, and tossed it aside. It detonated into a crater more than 7 meters wide. Mu Yue nodded to himself. No problems. In fact, having that extra reservoir made using flame-breathing far more economical. He could push the mode harder without draining his main chakra pool. Normally, he didn't max out a breathing mode because the power gain rarely justified the chakra cost. But the Yang Seal was a dedicated extra blue bar meant only to sustain the breathing mode, so that concern didn't apply. After running a few more checks and confirming the seal behaved exactly as he'd designed, Mu Yue called Kakashi over before afternoon training. He handed Kakashi a neatly arranged scroll. This is an S-rank sealing technique called the Yang Seal. I developed it to solve the high chakra consumption of breathing technique modes. It stores extra chakra for use in battle. Kakashi's face lit up. He needed this. Even in Mu Yue's past life, Kakashi, without the Sharingan, already had excellent chakra compared to his peers, but this version of Kakashi wielded some overpowered skills, lightning-breathing chakra mode, and one thought cut among them. Their power was immense, but so was their cost. With extra chakra to maintain lightning breathing, I might not be exhausted after a single swing, Kakashi thought. With enough chakra, he might not be at such a disadvantage against Metkai. It drove him crazy to have a full arsenal and not enough chakra to use it all. He was skilled in lightning and earth release, and his proficiency with armed color hockey was nearly Shisui's level. His lightning-infused sword techniques were razor-sharp. But too often he had to pick and choose abilities because chakra was limited. If he could freely deploy fake darkness and purple lightning, he wouldn't fear Metkai's 8 gates and rock breathing mode. And Kakashi had one edge of his own, transparent world. Read through the scroll first. Don't rush into practice. The Yang Seal is dangerous. I'll explain everything in detail in a couple of days, Mu Yue warned. His sealing level was at least on par with Kushina's, and on top of improving his medical ninjutsu with scrolls, he'd learned medical theory from Tsunade herself. For safety, Tsunade acted as guardian when he perfected the seal inside his body. He intended to let Kakashi master the theory thoroughly before practicing under supervision. Understood. Thank you, Mu Yue-sensei, Kakashi replied, taking the scroll. He wasn't about to be reckless. When Mu Yue called something dangerous, that was not a thing to gloss over. When afternoon training resumed, Mu Yue let Obito and Shisui work on Blue Flame while he taught Charizard the Great Sunny Day technique. The daytime Great Sunny Day wasn't as dazzling as at night, but it still drew attention. The air within its effective radius heated up at an unnatural pace. Luckily, the spike was brief. After a few minutes, the technique faded and the temperature normalized. Charizard actually learning Great Sunny Day? I don't believe it, Obito scoffed. Using Great Sunny Day at night was like forcing light into darkness. It could also weaken water release and strengthen fire release. Obito wanted the technique badly, but Mu Yue had refused earlier, saying the time investment wasn't worth the return. Obito didn't think Charizard had better fire release talent than him. Before his bloodline awakenings and flame-breathing enhancements, his progress was just average. Charizard, on the other hand, had struggled even to learn the Great Fireball technique. Charizard shot Obito a glare. Today Obito looked down on it, but once it mastered Great Sunny Day, he'd be the one begging. Not only will I learn it, I'll master it, Charizard thought smugly. It had already plotted little mischiefs. Once Obito fell asleep, it would hang a tiny Great Sunny Day over his head to warm him, carefully controlled so it wouldn't wake Obito's grandmother. Charizard threw itself into training and, under Mu Yue's instruction, its progress accelerated. Mu Yue watched his disciples and their Pokemon training diligently and felt satisfied. The South Border Forest was another day of steady, harmonious progress. After afternoon training ended, Shisui went home, prepared dinner, and took Zorua out for a walk as usual. Back in his small courtyard, he continued training until 11 at night, before finally stopping to bathe and rest. "You've been working harder than usual," Zorua said, stretching as it lay beside him. "You train almost all day. Isn't training supposed to be balanced with rest?" Zorua fretted that Shisui, human and thus more fragile, was overdoing it. Shisui patted Zorua's head. "Mu Yue-sensei's secret medicine keeps me safe, and I need strength to reach my goal," he said. "Once the police force matter is settled, I'll go back to a normal routine." The clan meeting was coming. Shisui intended to make a major move there and had to be as strong as possible. If everything went smoothly, he might not need to display force. If not, if some Uchiha resisted or tried to sabotage the meeting, he and Obito could no longer be dismissed as just prodigies. "So you really want to get stronger?" Zorua asked, standing up. "Yes, I need to be as strong as I can right now." Zorua regarded him with a helpless look. Shisui reached out to tickle its head. Why was the little fox acting like it was taking care of him? It hopped off the veranda and stood in the courtyard. Watch me closely, okay? Remember how cute I am, Zorua teased. After a minute, it stopped pretending. It had held back its evolution deliberately. All the way back during the martial arts tournament, it could have evolved, but it suppressed the power. It hadn't wanted to change, because evolution could make it huge, like Charizard or Milotic. How would Shisui hug it then? The illusionary charm that let it seem small wouldn't change its actual mass. If it evolved and still clung to Shisui, it might exhaust him. But now, Shisui needed protection more than cuddles. An evolved Zorua would be stronger. Is that really what you want? Shisui asked, conflicted but proud. A brilliant white light swallowed the courtyard. When it faded, Zoroark stood before him, much taller, nearly 1.7 meters, and upright. The red mane that used to be a crest on its head now fell down its back like a heavy cloak, dense fur almost overflowing. Sharp red claws marked its arms and legs. The change wasn't just size. Zoroark moved like a humanoid, more imposing and mature. Now I see how small you are, Shisui. Should I call you Little Shisui? Zoroark teased, tapping his head with a paw. Shisui's face darkened. Stop messing around, he said, but Zoroark's playfulness faded under Shisui's stern look. Despite the physical dominance its evolution granted, Zoroark quickly straightened and became respectful before the boy who had raised it. Try a genjutsu on me, Shisui said after a moment. Genjutsu was Zorua's innate talent, and evolution amplified a Pokemon in every way. Zoroark's genjutsu should be much more powerful now. Heh, you're already in a genjutsu. Zoroark crowed, then let out an arrogant laugh. To Shisui's eyes, the four-legged Zorua form flashed back into view. I'm still Zorua, I haven't evolved at all. Tricked you. Shisui didn't feel anything at first. He was a genjutsu master himself, adept at casting and dispelling, but he hadn't noticed being trapped. He activated his 3 Tomoe Sharingan. The Sharingan amplifies and filters genjutsu. In that state, his resistance was much stronger. Zoroark's voice echoed in his mind, proud and theatrical. In an instant, the Zorua before him swelled into a colossal version, bigger than a house, growing as if it would collapse the roof. The illusion's scale and detail were excellent. Even with his 3 Tomoe, Shisui found the genjutsu immediately effective. It was strong enough that, without care, he could have been held. With concentration, he could dispel it, but the power was undeniable. Among the Uchiha, aside from Fugaku, whose skill was uncertain, the others didn't match Shisui in genjutsu. And even so, Zoroark's genjutsu had pushed Shisui into a position where he had to work to break free. That alone proved how useful an evolved partner like Zoroark could be.